Okay, it is 4 o'clock, so we are going to get started. So with our scheduled budget workshop for this evening, we appreciate those that are here. Tonight's main agenda is Public Works and the one or two departments that our Public Works Director oversees. There he is. He is paying attention, so I got a little smile out of him. But I believe we're going to start with Ray Lynn presenting, talking about property tax. We got some numbers back from the county. And then after that, I believe we're going to jump to Mr. Swanson with the airport, and then we'll jump into Public Works.
So I got preliminary numbers from the county. They were actually delivered to Rochelle on June 6th, so I apologize that they're so late getting and presented to you guys. I just was not on the email string, so I didn't know they arrived. This is the property tax. Yeah. So will you scroll down to the preliminary? Can I just do it? Okay. Oh.
Really going through it quick today.
So these are our 2024 preliminary values. So as you can see, the 2024 net taxable value is just over $8 billion. And then new construction is at $338 million. That's 90% of the value because that's all we can take. And then annexation values are $14 million. And then operating property, that doesn't get updated till August by the tax commission, so that's still last year's number. And these are just values. So values are what help set the levy rate, but they don't set our budget. So it's a little bit, there's two separate calculations within the property tax.
Can I real quick before you jump off of this?
Sure, go for it.
So just for council's knowledge on this, this is one slide, and no offense, Mr. or Councilor Allgood, where our state legislature has kind of hampered the cities. House Bill 389 that was passed a few years ago, and I think it was before your time in there, so you can say claim immunity. That 90% that you see there, a new construction annexation did not exist before House Bill 389. So that restricts some of the money that we're able to use from new construction. I know a lot of the talk on council is growth paying for growth. And new construction annexation obviously is growth, but that has hampered all cities across the state in regards to what they can collect from new growth coming in. And that money, this is property tax money we're talking about, so that is specifically more or less for police and fire. So it really hampers cities' ability to fund their police departments and to fund their fire departments, and this just continues to add on every year and become more and more of a burden on cities. So I know cities are really working hard to try to amend that House Bill 389 so that new growth can pay for growth and get rid of those caps that they have on there. So we got hammered last year with the 80% on the urban renewal when that came in, limited us quite a bit, and then again on this, and this is specific to new growth. It's new construction, annexation, which is obviously new to the city, and trying to get those new residents to help pay for the additional police officers, firefighters that are required with the growth, but due to that House bill, it's really limits the city's ability to do that. So this, I mean, without these, we'd be able to this would pay for at least 3 new police officers this year, firefighters, and compound that every year. You can see how it can get out of hand. So cities are really working hard to try to amend that, but just want to make sure you're aware of that and encourage our legislators to change that so that we can ensure that new growth pays for growth on that. But anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to touch on that real quick since that slide was up. Thank you.
So as I talked about, the values help set the budget, especially when it comes to, when you look at line 3 and line 6, we talk about the preliminary levy rate. This is also impacted with House Bill 389. It used to be just the previous levy rate. Now it's a calculation that's reduced. And so these are our current preliminary levy rates. And so it does reduce that new construction and annexation values as well. Now, when I was proposing the budget and when I had the numbers, as you can see, for new construction, that amount is $1,155,885. What I had in the budget previously was about $850,000 based off conversations with the county, and so that has significantly jumped up. Same with annexation at about $25,000 in the budget, and that is now with what's proposed in the values, it's $45,000. So that does change the amount that I've already updated within the budget spreadsheets. So if you pull the reports online, you'll see those updates with the property tax. But this is kind of the calculation that goes through how we figure out budget-wise how much we can take. And if we hit the 8%, which is also because of House Bill 389, if we were to take the 3% inflationary plus the full annexation plus the full new construction, we're about 7.4%. So it's less than that 8% cap, so we're not hitting that cap, which is really good, which means we don't lose any property tax values or property tax budget monies. So the full allowable budget is that $29,043,824, but then we also have property tax replacement, which is the $253,919 that comes from the state. So we reduce that down. So the amount, if we were to levy, would be that $28,789,905 is what that would be. Talking about levy rates, so you can kind of see, I did an estimated calculation, so you can kind of see the difference in how, where it says fiscal year 25, that's actually fiscal year 22 on the right-hand side, so I apologize for that. But this is kind of previous year's levy rates and then kind of the estimated levy rate that I'm projecting for fiscal year 25. So you can kind of see the differences and how it is reducing down. Part of that is because our property values keep going up, which will help to reduce the levy rate. So this is kind of a last 2-year overlook of how much how much property tax we budgeted on the L2, how much we received, and then what's the amount that the departments have received. And so you can kind of see the percent change and the dollar change. And so you can kind of see for like police, from 23 to 24, they got an additional $1,874,769. And then from 24 to 25, it's an additional $927,978. So across the board, we've seen significant increases. Even some departments like the airport, where in fiscal year 25, we're reducing it. So I'd be happy to have this posted online. I think it's actually already posted online on the city's website. Emmanuel was working on it, so you guys can view this at any time. That's all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, I had a question. Yeah. Would you explain property tax replacement, please?
So property tax replacement comes from just certain things. There's one from 2002. I don't have it off the top of my head, but the years, there's only certain property tax, and it's from agriculture. There's only certain reasons why we would get it, and it's set at a set value, doesn't increase over time. So I'd have to look at the years, but I think there's one in 2002 and one in 2013 that we received property tax replacement
that
from.
goes against what we receive.
That's, yes, because it's to replace the property tax monies instead of levying it. It comes directly from the state. It's similar to what the state did last year, where we received credits against it. So we levied a full amount, but the county didn't levy that full amount. We got credits against it that the state was paying.
Okay.
So each homeowner saw in their bill a reduction of property tax because the state was paying it on their behalf. So.
All right, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stoddick, do you mind turning your mic on? So, thank you.
I just wanted to comment for everybody's interest that the bill that was passed that we've been talking about is just kind of a temporary thing for the next year or two. The bill that we tried to get passed, which was real property tax relief, thanks to Mr. Moyle, Mr. Harris, and Mr. Bedke, it did not get passed, and we tried to lobby through the concerned citizens of Canyon County to get real property tax relief. And when you look at the kind of properties that those three folks own, a lot of it's ag relative to Bedke, so there's no, no skin off his back. And Mr. Moyle, a lot of his is commercial industrial, so no skin off his back, and same with Harris. But those are the three boys that prevented real property tax from being passed the last couple of years. So just thought I'd add that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Anything else or any question, or Councilor Dittenber?
Yes, Raylan, can you go back to the slide where you talked about 2000, that one right there, the 2000. So we can see over the years from 22, 23, 24, the levy rates have gone down. And so I want to chat about your proposed 2002 on the left-hand side. That would be the 2025 proposed levy rate. And I see that that also drops by, 0.1%, basically, if my decimal point calculation is done correct. Does that mill levy there at that 0.35 rate, does that reflect the statutory maximum we can increase our budget, meaning that this is an automatic trigger levy, or is this your recommendation?
So the statutory maximum that we could increase our budget is 8%. So to do that, we would have to take additional foregone, which is not included in this budget proposal. So the cap in the budget dollars that we can take is 8%, and we're at 7.4% right now. That doesn't mean, like, if our new construction and annexation keep increasing higher and higher, there's the potential that those could max out to that 8%, and then we just don't have that budget capacity of the 8% any longer. But right now we're not there. We have to take off the inflationary, the new construction, and the annexation to get close to that.
So my question then again is the proposed 2025 mill levy that you have there is based on the fact that we are at 7.4% of our maximum that we can increase our budget. So that amount then is triggered by that calculation, not something arbitrarily your office set.
That is correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Okay, Mr. Swanson.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, Scott Swanson, Director of Aviation for the City of Caldwell. Just want to start gratitude for the trust and support and dedication that you have bestowed upon the staff of the Caldwell Executive Airport. Your commitment to change and growth has allowed us to instill a culture of professionalism. So the airport budget for the upcoming fiscal year is developed in alignment with our mission to ensure that safety and efficiency are of the utmost importance. It reflects a balanced approach that addresses evolving challenges, and focuses on strategic growth while maintaining fiscal responsibility. Key highlights of the airport budget include professional development, equipment, and operational efficiency. The airport budget for this next fiscal year reflects our commitment to maintaining the highest standards of professionalism, fostering community trust, and ensuring the safety and well-being of our airport users. We strive to balance the needs of our department with the fiscal responsibilities entrusted to us, and together we can build a safer, more vibrant airport that represents the community it serves. Excuse me. So to start this, our mission statement for the airport is that as a general aviation airport, we are operated, maintained, and preserved for the benefit of, one, its users, and then also the city of Caldwell itself. Caldwell Executive Airport is committed to supporting the economic, environmental, and recreational needs of the community through a practice of safe and secure operations and fiscal self-sustainment. And then we're going to do that through enhanced economic activity and job creation within the city of Caldwell by continuing to grow Caldwell Executive's airport competitive position in the regional aviation marketplace. And then also we're going to do it for essentially have us perform as an economic multiplier for the well-being of the community as a whole, not just the small aspect of the airport and that area, but then the city as a whole, and how are we going to drive the use of the airport to every citizen that we can to get out to the airport. We're all familiar with the organizational chart, which is obviously the mayor, myself, our airport operations manager, and then assistant operations and maintenance operations we have ongoing at the airport. For fiscal year 24, so I've been in this position, I think, 10 months now, trying to get probably a lot more done than I should be within that time frame. However, I enjoy being busy. I enjoy the challenge. I am truly thankful for what you guys have bestowed upon me as the challenge of the Caldwell Executive Airport. So with that, FY24, we accomplished a Director of Aviation position right before the fiscal year started. We have an Airport Maintenance Operations Specialist that we hired during this last fiscal year in October. We have the Airport Operations Assistant, which that job title was changed over in the end of March, April of this year. And then the Airport Operations Manager, and that job title was changed over in January. And then we also, what we completed with concurrence from the Caldwell Executive Airport Advisory Board is the Airport Mishap Response Guide, which allocates steps to take if you do have an aircraft accident or incident involving loss of life, property, or equipment on the airport. We have updates to the rules and regulations, minimum standards, which the last workshop discussed, and we'll be back before council at the next meeting. We have a new leasing policy that we are being worked right now. And this will be a focus for the board moving forward and expect to be in effect for the start of fiscal year 25. I've worked with the city grant coordinator to procure a fully funded solar system for the Hubler Terminal with zero cost to the community tax base. We have a monument sign that was installed at the airport, and that was designed and complete by Superior Signs based in Caldwell, Idaho. And then also a rewrite of city code and reorganization from the former Airport Commission to what is now the Caldwell Executive Airport Advisory Board. And then we also had 2 vehicles purchased this current fiscal year within that budget line of what was allocated. We got 2 vehicles, 2 light sets, 2 air-to-ground radios, and I was able to outfit the truck we currently owned to work more as a maintenance contact vehicle for our maintenance operations specialist. The summary for the fiscal year 25 budget is evident that our agency is diligent thinking about financial resources to ensure safety, security, and functional capacity of the airport we serve. And then also the budget will reflect a commitment to delivering effective operational services while optimizing the allocation of funds. Primary focus is going to be to enhance the efficiency and open communication in the flying community and the city itself. And this proposal is to support essential functions such as maintenance, safety, and access to the community. These investments aim to improve understanding of the position, function between the city staff and airport users, while fostering positive relationships across the community and the airport as well. The airport budget identifies future priorities and initiatives needed to streamline the airport's operational function, outlines the agency's commitment to increasing department's ability to self-fund future development. These plans align with the agency's long-term vision of adhering to Grant Assurance 24 and becoming as self-sufficient as fiscally possible. And then below is an overview of some of the items out of the budget proposal that I viewed as probably some of the most important parts. With that starting, increased training and professional development of the staff itself, and that's going to be primarily through utilization of the AAAE, or American Association of Airport Executives, and their learning platforms and certification platforms within that program. So with that, we have airport certified employee, airfield lighting and maintenance, which we have our maintenance operations specialist currently conducting right now. And I expect everything I talk about within this section to be tested out on within the next fiscal year and certified within the next fiscal year. So with that program for himself is detailed electrical theory, maintenance techniques, while educating and challenging himself and dealing with the airfield lighting, which has been an ongoing, I guess the appropriate term I could use right here would be struggle bus, as far as the amount and length of wire into the miles that run the lighting system on the airport and everything that gets into that. Also with the visual aid systems and everything else that is vital to aircraft safety on airport surfaces. The certified member program, which myself and the operations manager are currently enrolled, covers finance administration, planning, construction, environmental, airport operations, security and maintenance, communications, and community relations. Now, this is a self-study program. Essentially, this organization gives you about 8 books, and then you get to read through those self-study and then take a 250-question test when you feel ready. But this is a nationally recognized certification as a certified member and is highly sought from those within the airport executive space of employment. Memberships, I have all employees as members of the AAAE. We're also all members of the Idaho Airport Managers Association. And annually, we attend conferences already for the Idaho Airport Managers Association and the Montana Airport Managers Association. And the reason Montana is there is that airport district office that we fall under is out of Helena, Montana. So a lot of information from that office goes to both of those conferences. We have the AAAE Annual Conference and then the National Airports Conference. Through this, increasing the training budget is a vital investment for professional development, skill enhancement, and community engagement of its staff. By providing the comprehensive and ongoing training opportunities, we can ensure that the department remains at the forefront of federal and state aviation practices, fosters positive relationships with the community, and upholds the highest standards of professionalism, accountability, and public safety. Now, moving more into a maintenance aspect and being able to cut costs that have historically been within the budget as far as weed control, pest control, and things of that nature, chemical application with help from the county this past year. Moving forward, we're going to be looking to do that on our own, essentially procuring our own weed deterrent chemicals from Simplot directly ourselves and utilizing the side-by-side as pictured, a 65-gallon 5-nozzle boom UTV sprayer as pictured, and then also finally getting this airport a sweeper that will be able to pick up not only magnet with the metals and things like that, but also gravel and debris and other things that may be on the runway, taxiways, and taxi lanes. And that'll save costs, one, not only for the department itself, but also the users itself, because if you have too much gravel on taxiways and things like that, and items start chipping props and rotors and things of that nature. I did not know this. I learned this about probably a couple weeks ago, that a inexpensive prop for an airplane is between $6,000 and $8,000. So I would also be upset if I chipped that on rocks. So we're going to tackle that and move forward in the future. But that sweeper is 54 inches wide and will be able to be pulled behind that side-by-side machine. all across the airport. For page 9, operational efficiency, trying to start a Xerox contract. So that's going to be $1,260 annually for large-scale print, copy, scan, email system integrations. And this contract will be coming in at $105 a month or $1,260 annually. And it'll also include all the ink and toner and maintenance and troubleshooting and all that provided by the supplier. Airport and economic development joint research into an airport economic impact through FY25. So the last impact study we have from the state was in 2020. The state of Idaho Aeronautics only conducts economic impacts every 10 years because that's what they are mandated to do. So essentially, I view it after about 2.5 to 3 years that study is no longer valid because things have changed, and we all know in this area things are changing rapidly when it comes to economics. So we're going to look at that and then look at information development data to inject, and I plan on doing most of that legwork myself in conjunction with economic development, and that's going to be a lot of feet on the ground, talking to the businesses on the airport, figuring out who employs who and what their costs and expenses are in and out. Looking at a paywall and internet-based scheduling systems to streamline administrative tasks. One of the things we do have continuously on the airport is hangar inspections. Every hangar on the airport needs to be inspected once annually, and I feel like I can do self-research into that to figure out the scheduling system that would work best, and we can just make that an online tool for the users, and they can go in and schedule it from what's available on a dated calendar that'll work for us. Then cost-benefit analysis into an airport operational database systems and the efficiency improvement from system implementation at the airport's current and future states. So when you talk about airport operational databases or AODBs, a lot of that segment of work within that technology realm does focus more on passengers, on deplaning and enplaning and embarkments and all that stuff. However, with the last FAA Reauthorization Act that was just passed, they did reduce the additional funding that you can get for cargo operations from 100 million pounds to 1 million pounds. So with that saying, if we're somehow able to look at into the future from now and see how we can get more or less 1 million or more pounds of cargo in and out of the airport, there is more non-primary entitlement money out there from the federal government that we could take hold of. And then federal grant-funded projects for next year, that's going to be the design phase for the construction of Taxiway Charlie and the final design for the air traffic control tower. The cost of that total is going to be $400,000, and the cost to the city is going to be $20,000. $360,000 of that will come from the FAA Airport Improvement Program grants, and then we'll have a $20,000 match from the Department of Transportation Aeronautics from the state. And then overall, the biggest thing I want to take away from this, and then looking at the proposed budgets for FY25. So as far as expenses, what I'm looking at for FY25 and what is proposed to you today is $925,000, $398. And then proposed revenues for fiscal year 25 is $1.2 million, $43,024. And with that, we are already at a cost savings of just over $300,000 moving forward to finish fiscal year 25 off of this proposed budget.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any questions, Councilor Doty?
No question, I just want to make a comment. I think what you're doing out there is exceptional, great work. I like the direction the airport's going, so good job.
Thank you. Councilor
Thank you,
Spadafore?
Councilman.
Actually, I think you just turned it off.
Because of the, property tax problem that we have, because of the lack of our state legislature helping us out with police and fire and all safety issues, if you were directed to cut one position, which one would it be out of your chart here? After we go through all the budgets.
I think for a straight-up answer on that, Counselor, that'd be a very difficult thing, and I would need to do an impact analysis on that and see what the effects would be before I just stated something.
Okay, just keep the taxpayers' welfare in mind, so,
Absolutely, Counselor.
thank you.
Very good. And you're not asking for any new positions, correct? This depth's existing, I think,
Yeah,
right?
not asking for any new positions, and from my forecasting, I don't foresee any new positions over the next 25 years.
Very good. Counselor Williams?
Thank you. First question, is the side-by-side available on weekends? Second question, snow removal, how did that go this year? We didn't have any major events, but that always seems to be a sticking point. And are we projected well, and how do you feel about that moving forward?
Yeah, so looking forward for this next year, I have $25,000 allocated to snow removal, and that is going to be for the airport property proper, being the runways, the taxiways, and all that other stuff. So fiscal year '24, we had 3 snow events where we had removal, and we had a contractor come out with 2 front end loaders and then 2 of the street scrapers, the big, large, giant street scrapers or graders. Their practice is primary is the runway, and then the main taxiways, and in the taxi lane areas where all the hangars are. It's usually a 8 to 10 hour process on that, and I would say it's probably anywhere from usually $800 to $1,200 an hour on those equipment operating on the airfield. So with just the 3 events last year, we were able to make it work out, and I'm just it's kind of almost a spitball saying, I hope the snow events stay the same or don't get any worse. But we'll just kind of see what happens. But I do have money allocated for that for at least 4 snow removals next year. And then within how the funding's working for facilities maintenance within the city is that city employees themselves will be doing the Hubler Terminal parking lot and then the sidewalks and the areas around the building there.
And thank you for going into those details, because I think sometimes we forget how long those runways are and how wide they are. And it is, as you mentioned, 8 to 10 hours with 2 to 4 or 4 trucks going nonstop is what it takes to get those cleared.
Yeah, so it's 2 front end loaders and 2 road graders.
Yeah, so it takes a while. It's a lot of man hours. Because I know you look at it like, wow, that much
Yeah.
money to shovel the snow, but then you realize how much it is, how
Yeah.
much snow there is, and how much pavement there is out there. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, Counselor Dittenber.
Did that scare you?
No, I just didn't. I almost moved on without seeing your light, so.
I've got a question for Scott, then I got a couple questions for Ray Lynn, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So Scott, here a couple months ago, I lose track of time, may have been 6 months ago, I was in your office and you were showing me a spreadsheet that kind of explained the economic impact of airports our size for the number of planes. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that.
Okay, so is there plenty of room to grow the economic impact of the Caldwell Airport? Do we have room to grow without big capital expenses?
It's a two-parted question on that. As far as, do we have the room to grow? Absolutely. Without big capital expenses from the city helping that out? Not at this time, no. So where we're at on the south side of the airfield, we pretty much have no space remaining to build any more hangars. So right now, we have about 540 aircraft based on Caldwell. And so we do have a number for an economic impact per blazed airplane, and I kind of ran that against the budget. And I looked at it this way, for the operational budget, like say if you were to charge a user fee to people on the airport to use the airport, it'd be about between $1,200 and $1,400 a user per year to meet the operational budget of the airport, of all those airplanes. We have enough space to grow out to probably basing 1,200 aircraft. However, at this time, with no control tower, the runway capacity, when you run the math through the FAA programming on what our airport could actually support, you come up with 763 airplanes being based here. And that would produce a operation or a takeoff or landing every 2.5 minutes, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Could we get the 1,200 aircraft? Absolutely. But at this time, to get to that point, we need some serious infrastructure and money invested in the north side of the airport, just on road and utilities and other things of that nature, before developers really see it worthwhile or having it pencil out for them to come in and build anything.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, and just appreciate, yeah, everything that you do out there. I didn't think I could ever meet anybody with as much energy and moving forward as Steve Jenkins, and you get pretty darn close out there. I don't know if he's just contagious as he's next door, but the outside of the box thinking and everything that Scott looks at out there is just, I mean, it's tremendous in what he's done for our airport, and I'm excited for the future to see what it holds, so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, so that concludes you didn't have another one, did you?
No,
Oh, that's
Ray.
right, for Ray Lynn.
Ray Lynn.
Apologize. So that's it for you, Scott. You can
Thanks,
sit down
Scott.
and jump
So
to
Ray
Ray
Lynn, I'm
Lynn.
looking at this book here. This is still a valid book, right? We're 3 weeks down the road, 4 weeks down the road, it's still good?
You would have probably much more valid numbers online if you looked online.
Okay.
But
I
it's
didn't look
it's
online.
close.
So it looks here that the airport budget has actually decreased by 67% from last year to this year, in large part because of probably some federal expenditures or some projects that were federally funded. But how much of the airport operation is funded through the levy, and how much is funded through airport operations?
So I would say what I tried to do, especially with property tax, is cover personnel, and then the lease payments and all other fees that the airport charges either go to operations or capital improvements.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So, again, thank you, Scott, for that presentation. So we're going to take just a quick 3-minute break, then you guys can gear up for our next, and Rob, you can decide who gets to go first, second, and third. You're going to go first. I was like, so we'll take a quick 3-minute break, kind of get up stretch, get them ready, and then we'll come back with our Public Works presentation. And it might be a long one, so you might want to stretch your legs for a minute. Sharp. Here we go.
Mr. Mayor, Council, happy to be here tonight. Rob McDonald, Public Works Director for the city. Before I get started, I just want to thank you all for your time, for listening to all these presentations. I know there's a ton of information, and it can probably feel overwhelming. And there may be a little bit of overwhelming information tonight, but we have made a commitment to try to keep it as brief as possible and focus on the important things. I just want to thank also staff, Haley, Ashley, and Bruce for the hard work they've done on putting their budgets together, and then also all the other staff, the department heads, and everybody else that's been involved in this process. This is my first time doing the Public Works budget, and it's been a learning curve. I really appreciate finance and all the work that you have provided, and I love the new program. I saw how the budget happened before without the program we have, and it's made a huge difference. And so I really commend finance for pursuing that and putting that in place. Public Works, of course, encompasses several departments. We actually have 9 departments that we oversee. Sensitive button here. So our vision really is to empower department heads with the skills necessary to confidently and competently lead their departments to success while providing the best possible service for the public at the most affordable cost and while maintaining the confidence and trust of the public. I think that's very important. We know that we work for the public, and it's important that we remember that so that we're doing the best job we can to provide the best services for them. This is just a organizational chart of the Public Works Department. We have the 2 deputy directors, Ashley over water, Bruce over transportation, and then the city engineer over the engineering department and the mapping department. I apologize, I forgot to mention, this is kind of a comprehensive outline of all the departments. And also in the back, there's a 3-page stapled copy that has a couple of the maybe critical pages that you may want to look at and that I will be referring to. So Caldwell has been growing quite a bit, as you all know. We're in the 70-something thousands this year. In 2050, we're expected to be 112,000. And the only reason I bring this up is because every time a subdivision's approved or any development goes on in the city now has more roads that we maintain. We have more water lines, more sewer lines, more irrigation systems, and all of that additional maintenance is carried by the departments that are in Public Works. And so we have to recognize that as the city grows, the department responsibilities grow and the scope of work continues to grow. And the way we plan for growth is through the master plans that we have. We have this year many dozens of capital projects proposed, but they are all based off of information that we have in master plans. The master plans are the guideline that tell us what intersections need work, what sewer lines need to be installed, what sizes they need to be. And if we follow the master plans, then in theory, you'll have a city that's built out. When the city's fully built out, all the infrastructure will be the correct size, and it'll be exactly what's needed for that amount of people. There was something that Councilor Dittenber said in the last meeting where he talked about being proactive and reactive, and I think that's extremely important in Public Works. We have to be proactive. If we get to a point where a sewer lift station is at capacity, then we are already 2 years behind because it takes 2 years to build a new lift station. And so we look through the master plans and we try to gauge in the next 3 to 5 years, what are the things that we're going to have trouble with and how do we get those projects moving? So in Public Works, we are proposing 7 new positions. And the main reason, there's 3 different purposes for new positions. We want to maintain the level of service. Some of them are required because of regulation through DEQ or EPA. And then sometimes the positions will help us reduce the number of hired consultants or contractors that we have to do. And so I'm not going to go through these in detail just yet. As the departments present, they will talk about the position specifically that they're asking for. But I just wanted to put this out there first so you can see what we're asking for and what we feel like the needs are. Something that I've heard council mention in the past is burnout with emergency services. And I can tell you that burnout's real in any department. It doesn't matter where you're working. If a good employee leaves, it is a substantial efficiency and financial loss for the city because you have to take time to fill that position. All the work that person was doing gets pushed out onto other people, and then once you hire someone, you got to train them. And so we try really hard to keep employees trained. We want to keep them happy and we want to retain them. But at the same time, we don't want them to feel so overworked that they're burning out. And so those are some of our objectives. Okay, this is the primary, the budget overview for many of the departments in Public Works. What you have here are 6 of the departments. The other 3, mapping, engineering, and building, do not carry fund balance, and they are funded through different means. And so I don't show them on this exhibit here, but basically what you have is the budget overview. Line 1 is the 2023 carryover. Lines 2 and 3 are the proposed revenue, the proposed expenses. Line 4 is a line that I added in that demonstrates what out of the line 3 we think that we are not going to spend in this budget year. And a lot of times we budget capital projects and we anticipate that we're going to try to get through all of them, but we don't. And so sometimes they're held up by ITD projects, sometimes it's other agencies that are holding these projects up, and then sometimes we simply don't have the staff to manage the projects, and so they end up not happening. So line 5 represents what the fund balance is proposed or expected to be at the end of this budget year that we're in now. And then as you go down, 7 and 8 are the expenses or the revenues and the expenses for 2025. And then line 11 represents the capital projects that we are proposing in 2025 for these departments. And then as you get down to line 13, that demonstrates what we anticipate the worst-case scenario fund balance will be at the end of 2025. And on line 11, we budgeted and we proposed all these projects, and we're trying to find a way to get as many of them done as possible. Every project that's on that list is a project that needs to happen at some point. And if we don't get it done in this year, then it's a project, because these are enterprise funds, then those funds just roll back into the fund balance for the next year. And so we try to get as much done. We know through the master plans what needs to be done, and we are trying to prioritize those as best we can. But there's a lot going on, and it's hard sometimes to have the bandwidth to get them all done at once. Before I go any further, I just want to see if there are any questions about what I'm showing you right here. We are going to dive a little bit deeper into, we're just going to run through, well, let me just do this here. So we're going to run through some of these presentations. We are going to try to keep things brief and would hope that if you have questions, then we can certainly dive deeper into any specific items that you would like to. The goal for each department is to focus on the achievements, any of the goals that we have, and then any of the positions that are being asked for. There will be a little bit more explanation on why those are in there. Following my remarks, Brett Clark, the building official, will get up and he will speak a little bit at the end about this proposed building, and it's the building and facilities department, if that's a direction that we want to go or not. And that would be a department that would be pulled out from under Public Works and be its own standalone department. So as we get started real quick, I will talk about building safety. Ashley will go through the water quality departments, water, irrigation, wastewater, stormwater. Bruce will go through streets, electrical, sanitation, and then Haley will do the engineering and the mapping. And we will run through here. So in the building department, of course, the purpose of the building department is to oversee all the structures in the city, the safety, the standards, and make sure all new development, renovations, damaged, or compromised buildings, tenant improvements, anything that you have there regarding building are reviewed and inspected by the building department. The strategic goals in the building department are to cross-train inspectors. Having an inspector that is certified to inspect, let's say, electrical, HVAC, and plumbing is much more valuable to the city than one that is only certified to do plumbing inspection. And so cross-training is, and trying to get them certified for all of those different aspects are very important. Introducing permit staff to real applications, so when they look at a set of plans that someone's submitting, they know if something's missing, if there are issues. Eliminating the need for third-party inspection. With the amount of building that we've had a contractor that's done some third-party building inspection, and that's why one of the positions that I'm going to talk about in a second is proposed, so that we can eliminate some of that third-party inspection. Continue improving customer service. And then reviewing, this year, we will be reviewing our permitting software to see if there's something better that will better serve the entire red carpet team and all the other departments that are part of the plan review. There's a large budget item in the building department for that specifically. That's a placeholder so that if we end up moving forward with that, we will have the funding to be able to do that. On the right-hand side, you have the organizational chart for the building department. With the two positions that we are proposing added in there. The plans examiner position, like I mentioned, our plans examiner is overwhelmed, and we have had an inspector that's supposed to be out in the field in the office helping with plan review. And what that causes is that causes more work for the other inspectors, and we've had to hire a third-party inspector to come out and do some inspection as well. And then for the records specialist, that was an individual that spent 90% of their time doing plan permit intake, and because there was so much demand, and so that position was actually changed to be a permit specialist, but that then leaves the void for a record specialist who's in charge of doing all the scanning, all the document coordination, shredding, and then public records requests that come through the building department. That is a brief summary of the building department. The funding for the building department is there's multiple funding mechanisms for the last several years because of the amount of growth that we've had. They've been funded 100% through permit fees. But in a bad economy, when they can't fund their department through permit fees, then the general fund would step in and participate in that. And so as of recently, they've been fully self-funded through their permit fees. And with that, for the building department, I stand for any questions.
Very good, thanks so much. Councilor Doty.
Thank you. Rob, do you know how much we've spent on outsourcing those examiners or inspectors that go out for the third party? Do you have a figure by chance?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Doty. I don't have the number with me. Brett might have it tonight, but if we don't, we can certainly get that for you quickly.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilor Dittenberg.
I have a couple comments and a question, maybe two, or maybe three. So, Rob, you said a couple important things, and I just want to reiterate to the council that there's this old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And for those of you who haven't been involved in HR, and I think I have been a little bit in the past, that the cost of replacing somebody is about 140 to 200% the annual salary of someone, cost to the organization. So when we talk about issues like fatigue and wearing people out, I really want to be considerate that maybe it's okay to be counterintuitive, rather than saying which one of these positions or two positions would you want to cut. Maybe it's okay to say which one or two of these positions do you want to add, because we can really save our city money in the long run. The second thing I want to point out to the council is that when you're talking about a plans examiner, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, if I understand the information that was provided to us by the planning director here not too long ago, we have close to 10,000 homes that have been approved by the city council over the last 4 or 5 years. And if you just take a look at the projected tax revenues from 10,000 homes, that's how we pay for our police and our fire department. We either raise taxes to pay for public safety, or we put more tax-paying properties on the roll. There is no such thing as greater public safety but no growth. No such thing. I don't care what school of thought you come from. Now, here's the question. So, how many more plans could be examined, and would this position potentially pay for itself just by the increased fees in the plans examinations?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Dittenber, I don't have exact numbers for you. What I can tell you is that the building department has been extremely busy, and there have been an excessive amount of plans, and that's why the second plan reviewer is needed. If there are, as we get into the next couple months here, we will be reviewing fees, and that is something that usually gets adopted before the end of the fiscal year, but the fees are a big deal, and we haven't had time to dig deep into those. But we would like to assess whether the fees that are being charged are appropriate, and maybe they're low or maybe they're high, but we want to look at those and see how that impacts maybe helping offset the cost of the new position or covering the cost of the new position. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and maybe Ray Lynn would have those numbers. I mean, somewhere there's a cost, a break even, where you say, listen, this is how we're going to make money for the city by hiring another plans examiner. So, okay.
And-
Counselor, go ahead, Rob.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, Mayor. And the one thing I want to add to that is, as we look at the fees, it's very important for us to try to maintain a very reasonable user fee. Everybody that's paying their water bill every month, everybody that's paying a sewer bill every month, those are the citizens that have been here for a long time. When we're talking about new development, that's a little bit different, and everybody ultimately is kind of buying their way into the city. And I think that's where, we want to look at those for sure and make sure that we're in the ballpark, or that we're charging the fees that should be charged. We've been talking to a lot of other cities. I meet with the Public Works Director for Boise, Nampa, and Meridian on a bi-weekly basis, and we talk about fees all the time. And so we're trying to gauge, what's the standard, what are all the cities going through, and there's a lot with fees that go on, but we plan to dig into that and do some more analysis.
Thank you.
Counselor Allgood?
Yeah, Rob, I want to kind of go at this at a different angle regarding the plans examiner. When we're doing customer service and getting our builders and developers the approvals they need as they move forward, is our lack of plans examiner hindering that? I mean, are we getting a good turnaround, or are they waiting a long time, or can you address that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Allgood. We have two different processes. So residential goes through a different process than commercial. Our commercial plan review, we've had a commitment to the public and to the development community to turn plans around in 10 days, and sometimes that's very difficult to do. For residential subdivisions, our plan review takes much longer. And I don't want to step on Haley's toes a little bit, but in engineering, we try to stay under 30 days, but there's been times where we've been at 120 days because there's just so much coming in. The building department has quite a bit coming in, and so I think that we're meeting the timeline that we're prescribing, but we've had to pull, like I've said, we've had to pull that inspector in to also do plan review and help out to get everything out in the time frame that's prescribed.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Rob. Appreciate it.
Great.
Set up that monitor over there so you can see what's sliding down.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for your time this evening. Ashley Newby, Deputy Director of Public Works over the Water Divisions. So today, we will be considering the different water funds that I oversee. The first one is the water, second irrigation, utility locates, which is a new fund this year, wastewater, and stormwater, or MS4. Okay, great. So this is what our structure looks like, just really quickly. It's not working that great. Oop. Sorry about that. Okay. Just a quick reminder, water and sewer are enterprise funds, and so these funds are self-funded. They are not connected to or impacted by the city's general fund, and they may not be mixed with the city's general fund. All of the divisions that I'm about to cover are regulated for the purposes of protecting public health. So that includes drinking water, the Safe Drinking Water Act, wastewater, the Clean Water Act, and stormwater, also the Clean Water Act. We are regulated in all these divisions by EPA and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality. I also wanted to take a second to mention that our staff in each of these divisions hold professional water and wastewater licenses from the state of Idaho. They are required to carry them, and they are a benefit to the city to properly operate our systems. And that would be a public water system and a publicly owned treatment works. And then also our stormwater staff, most of them carry bachelor's degrees in science. Some of the common themes that we're going to cover today are compliance with federal regulations, protection of public health, property, and natural resources, rehabilitating and maintaining existing infrastructure before it fails, and choosing safe, cost-effective methods for those repairs. One item very quickly before we get into it. I was asked to touch on our community outreach efforts. I wanted to share a few events there that we've participated in the last year. The first one was the Water Division that hosted Caldwell School District Lunch Ladies. They asked for the opportunity to see where their water comes from. The Stormwater Division also participates in a couple county agencies, the Watershed Watch and Partners for Clean Water, to do outreach on water quality. And then we have a couple events left there. The pre-treatment program at the wastewater treatment plant, they do ongoing outreach to the Spanish community and teach those customers to protect our sewers by not releasing their fats, oils, and greases. And also we shared with KTVB this year a little bit about our septage receiving project, and that Caldwell is the only community that's in the Treasure Valley that's still accepting septage. So the first division that we're going to talk about is water, and that is the Water Fund traditionally. This division is led by our superintendent, Terry Martin, and his assistant, Ian Biddle. All right. So our primary objective in the Water Division is to provide customers with reliable and safe water supply, as well as maintain compliance with state and federal regulations, primarily the Safe Drinking Water Act. We maintain 340 miles of water mains, 15 wells, 2 storage reservoirs, and 22,000 active service accounts. A few of our accomplishments in FY24 included starting the Farmway water main extension, that's still in progress, as well as Wellhouse 19 improvements. This was an improvement to the site that we brought in-house. This was previously subcontracted work to do these kinds of maintenance tasks, but we re-epoxied the floors, painted the pipes, and revised our chlorine tanks. We also participated in the I-84 overpass at Ustick. This was a collaboration with ITD's crews. And we also worked on replacing non-functional large water meters. We noticed that this was cutting into our lost revenue, and so we took action to get them repaired. The one that you can see in the photo there is at the College of Idaho. And so we also had a few goals to share for FY 2025. The first one is our transition to automated metering infrastructure, as well as our lead and copper plan. We need to execute that in 2025 per EPA's requirements. We want to execute our exercising of valves and hydrants each year plan, and prioritize maintenance and rehabilitation of existing infrastructure that's truly in need. Another goal that we have for this division specifically, and you will see this in your budget packet, is to correct the structure and wage disparity that's currently existing in the water division. Another item that I wanted to bring to your attention that composes our professional services budget, you can see that a whole lot of that is drinking water sampling. Again, these samples are required by EPA and DEQ, so that costs us quite a bit of money to keep up with a public water system of our size. In addition to that, we utilize these funds for water rights management as well as drinking water on-call modeling. And in this budget year, we have a rate study proposed to make sure that we are on track to keep up with our proposed improvements going forward. Within the water fund, we are proposing one new position, and that's our AMI administrator, or automated metering administrator. You might be thinking, when this person takes their position, this is a system administrator to create work orders for, like I said, an automated metering system. It is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of having someone drive by every single water meter on a regular basis, this is an opportunity to collect those numbers remotely. So by adding this position, you might be wondering, what will the existing meter reader do? We certainly have enough work to fill up their time. They would be working on stopped meter inspections, excess consumption and leak checks, responses to customers, and all those things that right now take us more time to respond to. And if that's not enough for them, we have them assisting with the lead and copper inventory that I mentioned earlier, as well as water and irrigation plan review. That's not quite. Sorry, guys. The last thing that I wanted to mention in the water fund is they are requesting a new emergency generator for well 8. And that is the end of the water fund. So with that, I would stand for any questions.
So real quick, just kind of talking about that, the one existing meter or the stop meter inspections, just to kind of
Yes.
maybe shed a little light on that. So I've had the privilege of going out with the water department twice in the last couple of years, enjoyed it thoroughly, get to see what they do, how they do it. One of them, we went out and we are changing out bad water meters. And some of these water meters have been out for a couple of years. And so those people had not been paying a water bill for 2-3 years, and there was dozens of them, and it's just, they just cannot keep up with it because of the manpower, the staff that it takes. And so just by being able to replace those, getting those fees that should have been being paid, that these people, and some people do call, but the majority don't call and say, hey, by the way, you're not charging me water and you're supposed to be, just by getting those fixed would more than offset the cost of that position. And so I was really, it opened my eyes. I loved going out and being able to do that. But anyway, that's just kind of the need on that, is just to be able to keep up with those things. You got to remember, we have, was it 22,000 accounts?
Those are our active accounts.
Active accounts.
We have closer to 26.
Yeah, so you got to realize that means there's that many water meters out there. So even if the tiniest percentage go bad, that's still several hundred. And so being able to keep up on that is extremely important, and that would be a huge help for that, to be able to do that. So Councilor Stadek?
Yep. Would you say that being it's an enterprise fund, does the enterprise funds that we receive, the revenues, do they cover the costs?
In the water fund, right now, we are spending just about everything that's coming through the door. So right now, we are by the skin of our teeth.
So with the new additions on personnel, that probably wouldn't cover it, would you say, or would it cover it?
I think Raylyn worked on balancing that, but we, like Rob mentioned earlier, we are certainly proposing some adjustments to rates in the fall.
The reason I'm asking is just to dovetail off of Councilman Dittenberg comments about growth. If we don't keep up with this enterprise fund and their proper fees, then our growth is far exceed of what our total expenses are going to be, and that, accounting-wise, that's not good. So we can't, when we've approved these subdivisions, I think we have to keep in mind the effects that it has on the taxpayers. And again, if we grow too fast, that doesn't work relative to enterprise funds, does it?
It's really hard for our existing staff to keep up with the improvements that we need to make to keep up with development.
All right. Thank you.
Councilor Allgood?
Can I ask you some wastewater questions?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Well, I got them written down, so I'll remember them.
Okay, Counselor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask you water well questions?
You sure can.
So we got 15 wells currently,
Potable wells, yes.
right? You'll forgive me for asking a redundant question, but I think this is a good time to do it. Talk to me about the aquifer and how we're feeling optimistic about it, and then I've got a follow-up question for you.
How we're feeling optimistic about it. I would say that we do have, drinking water standards can change with each administration. And so one of the things that we saw change within the last 10 years is the arsenic limits. And that is an issue that is not uncommon in the United States or in the Treasure Valley even. And so there is some potential for us to need to install some treatment mechanisms going forward in some of our wells, especially out by Lake Lowell.
But we have reasonable belief that our aquifer is stable and sufficient to supply for the needs of our growing community?
As far as quantity of water, yes, I would say that. In fact, regionally, Caldwell has relatively high groundwater. We have a decent quantity of groundwater to pull from.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question for you, at least at the moment, is any anticipation of needing to build any new wells this coming year?
Yes, that is in our budget, and I believe that's in the handout. Oh, there is a list somewhere in your packet of our capital improvements, and there are wells in there. Test wells.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Stoddick.
Mr. Mayor, just a follow-up question. How deep are the wells that we have right now currently? Do you know?
Mr. Mayor, Counselor, they are typically between 300 and 400 feet deep.
Okay. I haven't had a lot of experience in agriculture. If you're down that far, you're actually in the aquifer. If you're not down that far, if you're around 100, 150 feet, all you're getting is drainage from irrigation. And we have to keep that in mind. And just to comment further on Councilor Williams' comments on the aquifer, we have to remember if anybody's going to run out of water, we're going to be last ones because we're downhill from Boise, so that helps us out tremendously. But we still have to keep track of that because if Boise or Eagle or somebody else starts having problems with aquifers, we're last here on the line, but, it's going to happen to us too eventually, so.
That's true. I would say that we're in better shape than some of those other agents.
Okay, very good, excellent.
All right. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the next division that I'm going to cover is the irrigation division. This team is a subset of the water department, but they do have their own fund. Within the irrigation division, their main objective is to provide Caldwell Municipal Irrigation District customers with reliable irrigation infrastructure. I say that because our water supply every year depends on Mother Nature. One of the irrigation division's accomplishments in the last year was to upgrade our pressure irrigation station at Ashton Hills in-house. They managed the electrical upgrades, building filters and pumps and motors. This was a relatively old station that we acquired from Pioneer Irrigation District about 25 years ago. And so we were happy about that accomplishment. The irrigation goals in FY 2025 are to fill all of their vacant positions and remain fully staffed. They want to continue installing SCADA controls to improve their service to customers, as well as replace outdated and poorly functioning equipment to maintain our high quality of service. The portion of their budget that's for professional services is just related to those SCADA programming and system upgrades that allows us to manage our pressure irrigation systems remotely and see how they're doing from a remote location. Within the irrigation budget, they did have a few materials requests. The first one is pressure irrigation system filter replacements. The filter brand that we have been using as standard has recently discontinued the model that we've been using, and so we're having a hard time doing repairs in order to keep those filters running on each pressure irrigation system. Each of those filters runs between $12,000 and $75,000 each, depending on the size of the station and the amount of water that it puts out. So we're proposing within our budget to replace 4 to 5 of those filters each year. And again, we have about 60 pressure irrigation systems, so that's going to take a few years. They are proposing 2 new pickup trucks, and you can see the details of our existing fleet there. The reason for that proposal is because these trucks are reaching a point where they're needing heavy, expensive maintenance, but they propose to hold on to the trucks so that they are still used for lighter duty tasks within the department. They're also requesting a storage lean-to equipment structure. The reason for this is some of our equipment has hoses and other items that just degrade in the sun, and so they would like to be able to place those in a shelter that's outside of the elements. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the other teams within our water division. Our backflow division, they're there to protect water supply. They have a specialized licensure from the state, and they prevent outside contaminants from making it into our public water system, as well as our utility line locates team. They are the people who respond when you call Dig Line or 811, and basically they will paint out markings of where our utilities are and protect them from contractors who may be digging in the area. And that is the end of our irrigation division budget. So with that, I would stand for questions.
Councilor Stanek?
Mr. Mayor,
So-
I wanted to compliment-
Turn your mic on.
It turned off.
I wanted to compliment your irrigation folks because earlier this year, there's been, at least in the area that I live, which is Sienna Hills, Cedar Crossing, there were a few problems, and I can't tell you how quickly they acted upon those problems. I had a lot of calls from our residents thanking us for the quick response that irrigation folks have, so I wanted to thank everybody for that.
That's great, thank you.
Councilor Doty?
Yes, just the older vehicles, you said that you wanted to keep them for lighter duty, but normally they're not running back to the shop or the shed, so to speak, or the office to change out vehicles depending on the job assignment for the day. So the great thing about selling those old vehicles is to get some value back out of them to offset the new vehicle cost. So the longer we have them just sitting, I'm concerned that they're going to just continue to depreciate in value. Even right now, used vehicles get a pretty good price. So I'm just concerned that I just don't want them to sit there for that one-off. We might use this once or twice a year when we could offset the cost of new vehicles.
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, I think that's a valid point that we could certainly consider. And I'm happy to invite Doug Bergstrom up here to kind of speak to that a little bit. It was explained to me that they would like to use it to make sure that they would like to keep them in their fleet, especially for times when the water division is doing shut-offs and turn-ons. That's really an effort that is all hands on deck. So that was kind of the thought behind that.
Not yet, Councilor Allgood, for your question, but I think it's coming up soon. Maybe next. Okay, yes.
Thank
Go ahead,
you.
Ashley.
All right. Long awaited. Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'll now be speaking about the wastewater division and your sewer fund, your wastewater fund. This division is led by our superintendent, Tony Harmon, and his assistant, Gus Betterly. Basically, their main objective is to provide reliable sewer collection and treatment systems to comply with our IPDES permit, which is our discharge permit to the Boise River. In this division, we maintain 250 miles of sewer mains, 15 lift stations, and treat approximately 8.7 million gallons of sewage per day. Some of the accomplishments that they asked me to share with you in FY24 were managing the construction of their new vehicle storage shop, and they were happy to share some of the items the turnouts for them that reduced our response time, as well as we added a bridge crane that allows them to do in-house pump maintenance. You can see the mezzanine level there in the picture on the slide that allows us to store our materials indoors. Another item that's a pretty cool picture there is our Archimedes screw pump that was replaced in-house by our team, as well as those other projects that we took on in-house. Within the collections division, we upgraded the Blackhawk lift station, as well as managed 20 cure-in-place pipe repairs. A few of the wastewater goals for FY25 from our collections team: they wanted to video and camera inspect all of our sewer mains every 3 years, as well as supply additional staffing to this team. And the purpose of that, which we'll talk about in a minute, is for sewer pipe repair and replacement throughout the city system. We have quite a list of locations that are not in good shape, so we're looking to tackle that. Within the treatment team, they want to always comply with our NPDES permit, as well as look for preventative maintenance strategies at the wastewater treatment plant. Okay. We have a few funds coming together here in different divisions. The first section is our administrative portion of wastewater professional services. Basically, all of these acronyms that you see and all these coalitions, they're really regional groups that the city participates in, and they have similar regulations in our area, and the goal is to accomplish one common task in many instances, instead of working in silos against other municipalities and each of us having to reinvent the wheel. It really helps when all of the municipalities in the Treasure Valley work together for a common goal when we all discharge to the Boise River. Within the collection system, we had quite a few different professional services initiatives. These were field repairs for technical services, collection system design efforts, on-call support, which is utilized by engineering and wastewater, that helps us to be able to respond appropriately to development proposals when they ask us to deviate from our existing master plans, as well as control engineering, again, SCADA support, those systems that allow us to monitor and manage our systems remotely. This specifically pertains to sewer pump stations. And finally, at our wastewater treatment plant, we have a multitude of professional services, laboratory chemicals and our service contracts, more SCADA programming, outsourced laboratory testing. The reason for that is we don't necessarily have all the equipment and all the staff to run all of our samples on site. So some of those do go to a third-party lab. Our United States Geological Survey monitoring station on the Boise River, that helps us to know how the river's doing and also how we are meeting the requirements of our permit. And finally, wastewater treatment on-call services. These are engineering services that guide us in the design of our treatment systems at the plant. That's very touchy. There we go. All right, in the wastewater fund, we are requesting 3 additional positions. This FY 2025, 2 of those are collections operators. The goal of that request is to establish a small crew for performing cure-in-place pipe repairs on the sewer collection system. The reason for this strategy is because we don't have to dig up the pipe. It's relatively specialized material, equipment, but not hard to get or to use. And so this allows us to respond to pipes that are in poor condition in a timely and safe, cost-effective manner. The other request that we have is for a wastewater engineer, and the goal of this position is to manage our technical wastewater treatment plant and collection systems projects that allow us to conform to our compliance schedule that our NPDES permit sets forth. There's systems, treatment systems that we are required to construct within a certain amount of time, and that person would help us stay on track. And along with the previous crew request, the equipment request there goes hand in hand. We are requesting a backhoe, a 1/4-ton pickup, a camera van, and a service truck. as well as a scissor lift. Some of those are to support maintenance at the wastewater treatment plant and assist with the collections crew that does repairs. All right. And with that, that is the end of the wastewater division fund. Thank you guys again, and I will stand for questions.
Counselor Allgood.
Down, I didn't
Perfect.
forget. So, it's been a trend over a number of years for our neighboring cities to quit accepting septage, and we still do. I mean, I know we have a number of residences in Caldwell that are still on septic tanks. I assume most cities have some to some degree. From a risk management point of view, why is everybody stopping accepting? I mean, are we accepting from all these other cities now, or what's going on there?
That's a great question, Mr. Mayor, council member. So the answer to your question is yes, we are accepting from those residents in other municipalities. And the reason if I understand correctly, that some of those have stopped accepting septage is the items that come in to the plant and have the potential to cause damage to the plant. Generally, that's the non-flushable, flushable wipes, the rags, the fats, oils, and greases, and the rocks are items that really do some damage. And so in order to continue to accept that, that's why we have a project specifically to make those improvements to protect our system. That was a decision made by previous leadership. And so we wanted to make sure that since there's so much rural areas still surrounding Caldwell, especially to the west, that we could continue to accept and respond to those that are outside, that are still on septic.
So we feel confident that we can continue for now without damaging what we have?
We do get damage from time to time, and so that's the reason for our system upgrade to try to minimize that damage and collect those rocks and those things that can cause pumps to bind up.
Thank you.
But yes.
Counselor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, with the potential of growth going out west of Centennial, are you folks concerned a little bit about what could happen to our wastewater treatment plant out there relative to the growth around it? Do you think that's going to be a problem for us in the next 5 or 10 years, or how are we going to mitigate that?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, I think that's a very real concern. When you look at one industrial type of operation, that it truly depends on what they're doing and what's in their waste as to how much of our capacity they can chew up. So we try to respond to those development proposals on a case-by-case basis, and then their connection fees, if you will, are charged on an individual basis. And then, on occasion, they could be releasing something to us that we truly don't want, and so those developments are required to put in a form of pretreatment so that what the city's getting isn't going to cause us damage.
I see Mr. Porter in the audience, and I just hope that when Urban Renewal approves these new districts, that they keep that in mind relative to the effect it has on us. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Doty.
Just to follow up on the septic, since we're on the topic, obviously, you've talked about that it needs repairs from time to time. Are we charging enough for people to come dump that in our city system to offset those damages? Or are you asking for additional money to fix damages that someone else should be fixing if we're accepting their product?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilor, it's my understanding that we are repairing the damages as they come to us right now. The intent of this new system is to try to minimize those. It specifically has a rock trap to prevent those from getting into our systems. And we will, like Mr. McDonald mentioned earlier, we looking at rates, and that is one of them. I do not anticipate a large dump fee increase. We seem to be sustaining at the moment, but there could be a small one.
Mr. Mayor? And just to follow up, so I think that fee should probably be looked at more than most others. If they're causing damage to our system and our taxpayers are paying to repair that damage, the fee should be adequate to repair the damage that they're causing.
Well
right?
received. I
Especially since
understand.
it's coming from other areas besides Caldwell, right?
Yeah.
So that might be the reason a lot of cities have canceled that. If we're going to continue that, we should charge a fee that offsets the damage that causes, so.
Thank you. I would agree with those comments. And in addition to that, one of the items that Canyon County Landfill has chosen to do is to charge different rates to those who are not located within their jurisdiction or reject them altogether. So that is an option that we have as well.
Councilor Dittenberg.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I do want to address a comment that Councilor Stoddard made with regards to any potential growth out past Centennial out there. And this might be something that probably no one here will remember. Way back in 2010 and 2012, the city entered into an agreement with the Caldwell Housing Authority, and we extended a very large sewer main across the river out to Farmway. You actually have a substantial, if not your most modern and newest lift station on Pond Lane.
Big one.
And I think that trunk capacity has the ability, if I'm not mistaken, to service Notice if Notice ever needed to get rid of waste. So there is a substantial sewer system already out there. The Farmway Village water main complements the sewer system that was
Yes.
brought out there many years ago. Is that correct?
I would agree with that, Councilor.
Good. The saddest thing you said there is when you said way back in 2010. I'm like, oh my gosh, we are getting old. I was working here in 2010, way back in 2010. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to concur. Had you not said it, Councilman Doty, I would have. So I appreciate your willingness to take a closer look at that fee. That needs to pay for whatever it's causing. So I won't be more redundant than that, but thank you for saying that. But I also want to add, and it's really commentary, the reason we're able to accept these, the reason we're even able to consider accepting these is because traditionally, our Public Works Department has stayed ahead on our wastewater capacity. And so that's a good thing because we do charge them, and so there is a revenue benefit to that. And there's other places I'm aware of where we've accepted waters, and so stay ahead. And it goes to your comment, Mr. McDonald, about we need to keep ahead of the curve. And so I appreciate the foresight and the administration of your team and what you're doing.
Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, thank you. They reminded me of another thing. I'm on the Finance Committee, I approve the bills, and I see that we pay a significant amount of money for biosolids to the landfill. Are we keeping up with their rates? I mean, are their rates increasing, and how is that working in comparison to what it has been previously?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, that is an excellent question. So this year, biosolids, not only did our biosolids hauling contractor increase our cost by 50%, the landfill, they increased a lot of their disposal rates by 20-ish%. So yes, the disposal cost of biosolids are on the rise, and we are working that into our fees and rates, absolutely. I think, if I may speak freely, I think it's probably within the city's best interest to consider different methods of biosolids disposal, such as composting or land application.
Yeah, when Mr. Orton was here, we actually kind of had a plan for a piece of property to do exactly that. Are we still considering those kind of things?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor, I think that's a valid, it's certainly on the table. It's certainly under consideration. One of the challenges that you run into with selecting a property near a wastewater treatment facility is typically within your community, the wastewater treatment facility is at the low point so that everything can drain to it, but and that it has access to a nearby waterway to discharge. But the caveat to that is it's at a low point and it's near your water and your river, and you don't necessarily want to deposit your biosolids onto the land right next to the river. So using the city of Boise as an example, they have a separate site that's very far from their treatment plant where they can land apply. So generally that increase your costs, and it needs to be something that is well supported by council and the community, because it's truly an initiative that is not free. It doesn't come without cost, but it's something that you select because you believe that it's the right thing to do.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mayor, councilors, I was asked to tell you that if you would like a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, please do let me know. We are open to that at any time. And with that, I will present my last section, which is our stormwater division, relatively small. These guys are a subset of the streets department, also known as MS4 in your packet potentially. MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. Their main objective is to enable the city to drain stormwater into federally regulated surface waters such as Mason Creek, Indian Creek, and the Boise River. This division is supervised by our stormwater superintendent, which is open at the moment. Within FY24, a few of the accomplishments that they completed was managing the expanded wash rack, which is across the street from our water department on Chicago. So we have plans to expand that, as well as managing our airport feasibility study, which is nearly completed but still in progress, and a few of those other tasks that are related to our MS4 permit. All of these items, I would note, are required by our permit that's regulated by Idaho DEQ. Their goals in this section is always to make permit compliance and also to protect the health and safety of the community. I would note that this division supervises 2 permits. One is the airport industrial stormwater permit, and one is the city's municipal stormwater permit. In FY25, we did revise the stormwater allocation amongst some of the departments, so you could see some changes in your budget. There are a number of professional services that we're proposing within the stormwater budget this year, and I'll just highlight a few of them. One of the is our WeatherLink cloud subscription. Right now we're operating on software that's 30 plus years old, so it has a lot of errors. We have to go out in the field to try to correct those errors, so we're looking to upgrade that software. Our expenses, we also have substantial expenses in the areas of stormwater sampling and lab analysis, of course. And then also we're proposing to complete and the next step of the storm drain capacity study at the airport. Again, the reason for that study is to try to close out our existing permit that consumes so much time and resources. And finally, our pollutant reduction activity that's required by our stormwater MS4 permit. In this division, we are not requesting any new positions. And with that, I would stand for questions.
Any questions? Okay, no questions on that one, so. Counselor Williams.
No questions, just a compliment, really. Thank you for your succinct and well-informed presentation. I really like that you just didn't read the whole thing to us, but you summarized it and you gave us additional information. Well done on a long presentation there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, set the bar high, so Bruce and Haley, just so you know, so. Okay, excellent, thank you so much. So who does get to go next? Is it Mr. Mills?
We talked about this yesterday, that I drew the short straw and have to follow the amazing Ashley. So, Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Bruce Mills, Deputy Director over Transportation. I'm going to talk briefly tonight about the 3 divisions that I have oversight with, and let's see. Hey, that wasn't so bad. So the first one's my largest division, which is the Street Division. It's overseen by August Medellin, and this has 25 positions within it, but we have 5 vacancies right now, and it's been a struggle with this market, and everybody's competing to try to find good labor out there. So seems like every time we fill a position, we lose a person. So we're working on that, though. So the core duties that we have, number one is really the roads. Well, that's probably why it's called the Street Division. So Pavement maintenance is a very high priority for us, and all the other things that are happening in the road, like keeping all the striping up to date and the pavement marking. We have thousands of signs that we have to maintain. And we also do a lot of street sweeping and catch basin cleaning, which ties in with the MS4 permit. We actually have requirements. We have to meet a minimum amount of sweeping each year and a minimum number of catch basins inspected and cleaned each year. And we're keeping up with that right now, but it's quite a chore. As you know, our street department are the ones, whenever we get a bad storm in the winter, they keep our roads safe and get out there and they put our pre-treatment materials down, and then sanding, salt at the intersections. They do a really good job with a limited amount of people. The other thing that we do is we assist other departments, and we're kind of the construction department for a lot of other departments in getting projects done, which I'll actually address in another slide. So this last year, I'm not going to read all these accomplishments, but you can just see the sheer volume of these numbers. There is a lot that gets done by the street division in any given year. Maybe just to touch on one or two, I was just out with our crew, the mayor was too, as a matter of fact, in our chip seal. We did 31 miles of chip seal in roughly a 2.5-week period. That's pretty impressive. It really is, especially considering that half of those people out there doing it that was their first time, because we had to train them ahead of the chip seal operation. So kudos to their crew. One of the things we've also introduced in this last year on our website is if someone sees a pothole or sees a sign that is down, they can actually just click on the website and report that. It goes straight to our crews, and they're able to go and take care of that. We did the same thing for our electrical crews with our street lights, if they see a street light that's out, or any issues with traffic signals. Requests for the street division, we've had changes even since that packet that you've got printed there. We had one position, we're actually removing that. We're not asking for any new positions in streets in the coming year. We feel we need to get those 25 positions filled and then see what our real needs are once we can actually get them all filled. We do have one big ticket item though, and that is a new Vactor which sucks out all the catch basins and our stormwater lines, keeps them clean. It's a big item. It's $650,000. We're not asking for it in 25 this coming year because it takes about a year once it's ordered to actually be delivered. So what we are asking for is a commitment that we can order it in 25, but to be paid for in 26. The one we have right now is 19 years old, and even though it's been well maintained, it has its issues, and if it goes down, we have nothing to clean. We don't have a backup. The thought would be if we get a new one that we would try to keep this old one as a backup. There's not really much salvage value to a 19-year-old Vactor, but the Vactor is part of our MS4 program, as I had mentioned before. The second thing is this next year we're looking to hire a paving expert to go and review and rate all of our pavements for conditions. And it's a pavement condition index rated 0 to 100, and it will go through all of our arterials and collector streets and give them a rating. They will provide a report that will actually give recommendations on how we can keep these maintained, what different options we have, and rough cost estimates of what that's going to take. So it's something that we really need. That picture on the bottom right, fortunately, is not taken in Caldwell.
That's in Nampa, right? Isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you. So looking forward at what we can do in the next few years, again, with that information we get, we want to create a pavement management plan, something we don't have right now. That will look at prioritizing which roads need overlays, which are expensive. What can we do with our chip seal program? Right now, we chip seal every road once every 10 years, but there's smarter ways to do it, and we're going to look at that. Brand new subdivisions can probably be delayed for a few years before we chip them. Arterials and collectors may need chip sealing more frequently than a residential local street. So there's different ways that we can do it, get a little bit smarter, and that's our plan. We're going to start adding a fog seal on top right after the chip seal. All the cities in the Treasure Valley do it except for us. And what it does is that fog seal locks the chips in place, extends the life of a chip seal 2 to 4 years. It also actually looks a lot better too, it's because it's black. The striping pops out when you have a chip seal. It looks a lot nicer. But mainly it's for locking the chips in place and extending the life of the chip seal. I guess switching from pavement over to sidewalks, as you know, we did a tweak in our sidewalk program recently where if the city has available funds, we're trying to hit up some of the worst sidewalks that we have out there. And those pictures at the bottom is the exact same spot, taken from the same spot. This is a before and after over on Blaine Street. That shot on the right was just completed yesterday. So we went and took the worst 8 sidewalk locations in that area and repaired them. And next year, we hope to do quite a bit more. But this is a start in getting rid of some of the worst places. So. And I have electrical division coming up. Are there questions on street before I move forward with that?
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, thank you for just being succinct and not reading the whole thing to us. It's great, and we have it in front of us as well. Tell me, though, and I mean this in the sincerest way, because we've got some just supremely qualified people with experience and a lot of knowledge working for us, not just in streets, in engineering, in public works. Do we not have the people with the qualifications and the capability of doing the assessment of our streets that we'd pay someone else $35,000 to do?
Mr. Mayor and Councilman Williams, actually, these people are experts in the field. They actually, it also takes a large amount of time. You basically are driving every road, block by block, measuring cracks, measuring the pavement condition, running it through a calculator, and coming up with an average for that block, that street, of what the condition is. So could we do that? Yes, I could probably learn the program or somebody and do that, but then they would be out there doing it for months. Actually, this is a bargain. A lot of people use these fancy vans that take pictures and then rate the roads that way. That's great, but it would cost us $150,000 to go with that method. These people that I'm proposing to use are out of Salem, Oregon. They're very good, and we're not just getting them rating the roads. We're going to get a really comprehensive report that gives us direction in how to move forward with our program.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So, assuming we moved ahead with that and we budgeted $35,000 and they went through the whole city, obviously the funds don't exist to do everything. So now they have to tell us what their priorities are, but at what point will we need to do that again then? Because at some point we can't even, I don't imagine we can catch up with that report before we'd have to do it again, or how do you propose that would work?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Williams, a lot of cities will rate their roads about every 3 to 5 years. I think we could go 5 to 7 years, but before we'd need another report. But you are correct. When this report comes out, I can guarantee you it's going to have costs that we cannot handle. So it's going to be similar to what we're doing on those sidewalks. We're just going to have to capture the worst first and go after them and realize we can't make every street look great. We're going to just have to figure out how can we spend the money the smartest way. If I could, I don't want to take up too much time, but if I go back and show you this slide, that top picture is a pavement condition index that talks about how pavements start to fall off slowly over time after they're a brand new road, and then there's a certain point where they start to dive and really get bad. They start to get cracks, water infiltrates. I'm sorry, I don't want to take up too much time, but I could geek out here for an hour if you let me. But along the way, if you catch that before it falls off the cliff and do a treatment on it, and that might be a chip seal, or it might be crack sealing, it might be a thin lift overlay. There's things that can be done in a smart manner to keep the thing from falling down and then having to be totally torn out and rebuilt. So those are the things that they're going to address. They're going to give us those preventative measures and some timing for those, which will still have a high price ticket, but we'll discuss that when we actually have the plan in our place.
And thank you for the
Workshop or
proposal
something.
to fog seal, because I have been concerned that we don't do that. It does save in the long run, if I understand the chip sealing process, so appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Counselor Doty?
And maybe some windshields too, hopefully. I just want to give you kudos on the sidewalks. I think this council's been promoting, doing something with our sidewalks, including adding new ones in places that protect our citizens as well. So I appreciate how attentive you were to that and how quickly you moved on some of those really troublesome sidewalks. And it was a great education that I got from Councilor Dittenberg walking around. So I think that particular picture you have there has been that way for numerous years. So it's great to see some action and some movement forward. So great job on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, electrical division's next. This small division, we have 5 positions. Bob Nelson, who's in the back, is our superintendent. Fantastic resource and person. They are also down 2 positions, you know. So when you have only 5 and you're down 2, it's kind of tough. But again, we're trying hard. We're working with HR, but it's just so competitive out there right now for positions. You probably have it yourself, you know. So anyway, that's our staff. The core duties for them, number 1 is traffic signals. We have 21 traffic signals. Got to keep them in perfect condition, keep traffic moving, obviously, on them. Bob just did some timing today at Chicago and 10th because of the detour and all the traffic that's on them. So constantly having to work on those. We have thousands of street lights and hundreds of parking lot lights that we maintain. And so they're working on that. Some of the schools have these special flashing beacons for crosswalks that we also have to install and maintain. And like the street department, we do a lot of favors for other departments. Like this year, we went out to the senior center and did some wiring on them for a new appliance. So they just try to do any type of assistance they can for other departments. Requests for this coming year, we're not asking for any positions. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong slide here. I must have skipped one. That's what it was. I skipped accomplishments. That's not a good thing, Bob. So this last year, working with a consultant, we reprogrammed the downtown corridor. It has much better timing. You may have noticed it on some of the streets to flow and get through some of the bottlenecks we've had in the past. Bob developed this checklist now so that whenever he or any of his crew go out to a controller cabinet box at an intersection, there are a couple dozen things that need to be done and checked, and so he's got this checklist, and everybody now is doing exactly the same thing to make sure that they've got everything maintained in that traffic signal to keep it functioning. We recently upgraded a lot of the wattage downtown and parking lots and the streets. We have more to do, but we went from 35 watts to 100 watts, and hopefully you can see some of the difference in those streets that we've completed. We've got a pedestrian signal we're going to be installing in this next month before school starts at Syringa to protect that crosswalk over there. I could go on, but I know in interest of time, let's keep moving. Requests, so we have 2 requests coming this year, no new positions, just like to fill those 2 vacancies we have right now. We have a 2005 van that's on its last legs, and it needs to be replaced, and we'd like to replace it with the same type of vehicle that electrical contractors have. Unfortunately, it's spendy, but it's really what we need to be efficient and to get our electrical work done. And the second one, we have a facility on a commercial way where we store some of our surplus signal poles and mast arms. It needs some work out there, and we'd like to increase the security around the perimeter of it. So it's a small fee, but it's 20 grand for that. Our goals moving forward, this is the exciting part. So I used to work at ACHD, and of course they have this, maybe you've seen it, they have this wonderful traffic management center, you know, where they can do it. It looks like Star Wars. We're not after that, but we can do certain things where we can tie our signals in to a laptop and be able to program those signals from somebody's desk rather than having to run out to every one of those 21 signals and do something by hand. And we're going to be looking at this in the coming year, figuring out how much does that cost, what's the cheapest way to do that, but still have the ability to do that. Similar, there's a smart streetlight system that is available out there where you can link all of your streetlights together in a way that they will pop up a report and tell you which streetlights are out in the city. So we don't have to send somebody around at night, one of our crew, you know, and with a clipboard and say which streetlights are out. So again, not implementing it this coming year, but figuring out the best and cheapest way to do it and coming back to you next year with a plan for that. My last division, sanitation. Oh, I'm sorry, I should stop. Are there questions on the electrical division before we move into sanitation?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, do we have control over the stoplight on 10th and Karcher?
I'm sorry, say it again.
10th and Karcher?
What was the question?
Do we have control of the street light, traffic light?
No, that would be ITD.
Okay, the reason I ask is because when the elementary school leaves out on 10th there and goes to Karcher, that left-hand turn arrow, it only shows green, it doesn't blink, you know, amber when actually traffic could move through onto Karcher, especially when there's hardly any traffic coming from the south going north. So if it had a blinking amber light, that traffic would move a lot smoother through there coming out of the elementary school and going south towards Karcher. So if we have any influence over the state folks, that would be great.
We can check with ITD on that. I know that they're reluctant to put left turn arrows flashing lefts on high-speed intersections because of the decision, if you make a bad decision, it's high speed. But we can check with them.
Okay,
So,
thanks.
sure. Anything else on electrical?
Okay, no, I think you're good.
Okay, whoops. So sanitation, I didn't put an org chart up there because you're looking at it. So, so it's me with a little help from my friends. So really, the two things that we do is we administer the contract with your public services, and we're a liaison with the public if they have questions. So some of the accomplishments this last year, and I can't take any credit for this. Rochelle Castleberry renegotiated a contract with them.
I think it went forward one extra slide.
Did I go too
Bruce.
far? This thing is touchy.
Yep,
Sorry.
there you go.
Okay, anyway, my apologies. So Rochelle negotiated this contract, updated it. I came as a Johnny-come-lately and helped a little bit at the end, but the changes in the contract, now we have a contract for the next 9 years, which is great. Our franchise fee that they pay every year to us is now tied to an inflation index, and so it will increase each year if we have inflation, which is, the old one was fixed for 15, 20 years, I think, something like that. We are paying a higher percentage now to Republic, tied to the landfill increases, which they haven't had any landfill increases the last 20 years, but they just made some increases there. And then we have the ever-popular curbside recycling that's been added, so. Two things looking forward, just monitoring that contract, seeing if there's any issues that come up with it. And the other one is just looking to explore the feasibility if we could get a future waste transfer facility here in Caldwell. Nampa is getting one right now as we speak with Timber Creek Recycling, putting something in just north of the sugar beet factory. It's not going to happen tomorrow for Caldwell, but it's something that we can plan for in the future and see if we can't find partners like Timber Creek to move forward with that. So with that, I guess one last thing before your questions, I just wanted to thank you for, I know I've brought a lot of new policies and things to you guys in the last few months. And in fact, we have an update to our access management policy I'll be bringing in a couple weeks. But I appreciate your support and the trust you've put in me and in our staff. And we are just trying to find ways that we can tweak and make things better. But that'll stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you, Bruce. Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Mayor, Bruce, I'm getting a lot of questions on Farmway. I guess they're tearing that highway up. That's a state highway too, is that correct? Or is that us?
Mr. Mayor and Councilman Stoddard, no, it's Highway District 4.
Okay. And I know in my previous term that we talked about a roundup on Ustick, and now they're telling me that there might be one on Homedale Road too. Is that true, or where do we stand on that?
There is a planned roundabout at Ustick and Farmway.
Okay. And do we have any idea when, so are they going to tear up the whole Farmway from Simplot Boulevard to Karcher, or how's that going to work?
They, do you want
Anybody
to
know?
answer? I understand from Director McDonald, he'll be addressing that when we go through our capital projects at the end.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, looks like the rest are red light, so you're good. Thank you so much, Bruce, appreciate your presentation. Okay. Mrs. Hart, it's good to see you this evening.
Good to see you as well, Mr. Mayor and council members. I will try to be quick, and I will try to be careful with the button. It seems it's very touchy this evening, but thank you. Thank you for being here and for hearing our request for the fiscal year budget for 2025. They're very touchy. So I just went ahead and combined our engineering and our mapping departments into a single flow chart. Please feel free to ask if you have any questions specifically about what any of the staff members do. You'll see that we do have a couple open positions. We are excited that our inspector position was just filled, and he will be starting on Monday. So we're getting fully staffed with our construction inspectors, which is very exciting. And our assistant city engineer, I've decided to hold on hiring this position so that I had time to really fully learn the department prior to having somebody assist in managing it. And finally, our GIS analyst in mapping, we are actively looking for that and hope to be making a hire shortly. I'll first start with our engineering department. Again, please feel free to read through the core responsibilities because this department has many, but really what the engineering department does is they manage the construction, the design, and all of the development that occurs within the city of Caldwell limits. With that, there's going to be both public sector and private sector projects that occur that they work closely with other, they work closely with other public works departments and other departments throughout the city, as well as the developers, the engineers, and the contractors that want to work within our city. We have several strategic goals for this next year, and we are working on these now, and they will continue into the fiscal year as well. Firstly, to improve our customer service. This is in several ways. Firstly, we have customers who come, or citizens, that come to our window daily with many questions just about their personal properties, and we want to ensure that we have answers ready for them and clear direction for those citizens who have any questions or clarifications regarding projects that they have on their property, whether if they want to do it themselves or they know developers around them. We just want to always make sure that we are well educated and well informed so that we can help inform our public. Also, improving our service for the developers and for the applicants in our city. We really just want to be able to improve our processes. I've worked with Caldwell from the private sector, and they've made great strides in recent years to become better to work with, and we just want to continue that improvement. And so we want to really clarify what our processes look like so that when an applicant, a developer, comes into the city, they have clear direction on how they can move forward with any of their projects. Next, we want to improve our pedestrian connectivity. I know that you have all been great supporters, and Bruce Mills has been great at improving all of our existing sidewalks in those emergency conditions. But we want to also just make sure that we're adding sidewalks to our city. This can be done through LIDs, which you have just opened, the miscellaneous concrete LID. We can work with our citizens to try and add those frontage improvements in front of their properties if they would like to participate. But the really important way that I would like to improve is through our developers. I think I heard earlier that the growth should be paying for the growth. So whenever a developer comes on board, we have a requirement that they develop the frontage improvements for the out parcels if we, the city, are able to acquire the right-of-way for those frontage improvements. So I would really like to make a priority to acquire right-of-way for out parcels surrounding developments so that we can have the developer be putting in the curb gutter sidewalk for the out parcels surrounding them to help improve the connections of sidewalk within our city. Lastly, our standards, specifications, and our code are in need of updating. We have experienced some growing pain in the last few years, and because of that, we have not been able to update our supplemental specifications to the ISPWC since 2015. So we are a little outdated with our code. We're actively working to update our drawings and our specifications now. And then the ISPWC board has let us know that they are coming out with their next revision in 2025. So our supplemental specs and codes will follow their latest revisions so that we are current, and we will continue to work with other public works departments to ensure that not only are we constructing and designing the way that we want our infrastructure to look, but also we are constructing and designing the way that other public works teams want to maintain our infrastructure. So we'll work closely with other public works departments here, as well as with planning to continue updating code. Some of our recent projects that we've accomplished, our projects typically take more than a year, so I can't say that these are just within the last year, but they are certainly some recent ones I'd like to touch on. We've made a lot of improvements to our USTIC corridor. Specifically, there's 4 intersections I'd like to show you. I think we all remember last summer with the Cleveland USTIC intersection being under construction, and we got through it, and that intersection now functions incredibly well. It is able to flow a large amount of traffic and safely. As well as at the Indiana intersection, we were able to construct a roundabout. And the roundabout was also constructed at Florida and at Middleton along USTIC. While we were doing these improvements, we decided that this was the correct opportunity to extend our sewer and our water so that we can continue to prepare for growth. That infrastructure was extended from Indiana to Florida and then down to the south so that we can prepare for developments to continue to come into our city. Next, we have been able to partner greatly with ITD for many of their projects. Most recently, they are working on their infrastructure along Highway 2026. So we are continuing to work with them to get our water and our sewer in the highway before they complete construction. Nobody wants to close that highway down twice and cut fresh pavement. So we're working diligently with them to get our infrastructure in now. Many think of our large-scale projects when they think of the engineering department, but we also work with many other departments on ones that are a little bit more near and dear to our hearts. Recently, just Friday, I believe, we had the ribbon cutting ceremony for the 21st Avenue parking lot and RV dump. So this is going to serve the event center as well as allow a location for safe and clean RV dumping. Lastly, a large accomplishment is one of the private sector jobs that we have been able to work very closely with over at North Ranch. I know the city has been greatly involved from urban renewal through the construction as this develops out. And you see all of the subdivisions that come through with their applications as you approve their preliminary plats. There's a lot of growth in our construction and in our industrial community as well. D&B Supply has been able to really make Caldwell their headquarters, and by locating at North Ranch, they have their flagship store, their distribution center, and their office all located in one central location here in our city. With the growth of the city, we see a lot of growth in our applications as well. The engineering department main applications, we manage many, but the main 2 applications that really keep us busy are going to be our subdivision applications and our construction documents. Those subdivision applications you can see are on the rise. The pink is through May this year, the orange is through May of last year, and the green is the total of last year. Our construction documents may look like there's a little bit of a lag, but as you can recognize, the construction documents follow our subdivision plats. So the more subdivision plats we see coming in, the more construction documents we anticipate to see. Thankfully, we were able to get another plans examiner, and he is well-trained now. We no longer are needing to utilize outside sourcing to help us with the review of construction documents. We've been able to get caught up on those. So we are reviewing all of those in-house, which is very exciting for us. Over on the right, you'll see that those are the building permits. I had to use another scale to show just how many building permits come in. Through May of this year, we're already near 900. believe. Yep, near 900. Sorry, that's small on my paper. I had to double check. So you can see that there's a lot of those building permits that come through that our plan examiner and engineering technician work diligently to review. I wanted to touch on one other permit that is very active. It's our right-of-way permits. We require any work done in our right-of-way, a right-of-way permit. So this, even if you're just doing some joint trenching off on the side and the shoulder work where it's not affecting traffic, we want to know what's going on in our right-of-way so that we can ensure the safe travel for vehicles and pedestrians that need to utilize our public rights-of-way. You can see that these have been increasing dramatically. The blue is this year, pink being last year, orange and green subsequent years. My engineering technician let me know right before this hearing that this past month, we have already seen, so here in June, we've already seen 81 permits come through for right-of-way permits. In October was when we hit our peak last year, and that was about 85. So we're already hitting our peak from last year, and as the summer continues, we expect construction to continue to get busier and busier. So we expect to see a rise in those right-of-way permits. And with those, our request is for a position for another engineering technician. With the right-of-way permits, it's not just the permits that are so important, but it is the enforcement of those permits that is incredibly important for us to ensure the safety of our citizens who need to travel within our right-of-way. We track all of the road closures, lane closures, flagging, detour, any notices. We track all of these on a board in our department. It's not the most high tech, but it works for us now until we want to pay for higher software that can track this for us. So we always have this board updated to show all of the various right-of-way permits going on in the city. And then we need to enforce these permits. We see a lot of issues where contractors are not following the proper traffic control safety measures, and this can get us into a lot of safety concerns and a lot of issues with our city. So I've highlighted two here. Both of these were due to improper flagging. The first one was at an elementary school. You can see that the contractor potholed and then put some cones up and walked away without any flagging measures. We always ensure that around school zones that the construction needs to be outside of the pickup and drop-off window. However, the contractor did not leave a safe environment during pickup, and so you can see school buses are having to veer into oncoming traffic during pickup. They are hitting cones to avoid the pothole and to try and avoid traffic. So we really need to have, we're requesting to have another technician so that we can really enforce all of the work to make sure that our citizens are safe. Again, over at Smead and Skyway, there was no flagger to direct the traffic that was being diverted by cones. And so the north and southbound were both traveling in the northbound lane. The southbound lane was fully blocked off by cones, and people who were just diverging into the other lane and hoping that the other way of travel was paying close enough attention to not get hit. So we try to go out daily, but with the amount of applications coming in, that it's just not realistic for one person to be able to keep up with this. Again, just a couple of other enforcement issues that we see often. Flagging corrections. We often see flaggers who will sit in their vehicles with the flagging rather than actually be paying attention to the traffic that they are supposed to be monitoring. If we have flaggers at all. We also have a hard time just getting flaggers out there. And also inaccessible sidewalks. Not only does this cut off our pedestrian connectivity and make it unsafe if a pedestrian needs to walk around vehicles or equipment that's been left on sidewalks, but also our sidewalks are not built to carry this type of capacity. And so this damages our sidewalks when contractors are parking or placing equipment within or on our concrete without permission. Because Mr. McDonald was unable to go through engineering and mapping, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what our and maintenance budget looked like. Excuse me. You will notice that we are requesting about 25,000 more than what we had last year. However, I did want to point out a couple of highlighted items. These line items are those that are added by our finance department, and we appreciate them, of course. I hope it doesn't sound that I am nagging on them by mentioning that, but they go through and they make these allocations after we create our budget. These are some of those items in which they've realized that needs to be allocated into engineering. And so two of those items, those first two, are about $25,000 in and of themselves that we were not charged for in previous years. So if you were to remove those, then we would be roughly the same as what we were last year for our budget. And then that other one is the insurance other than the employee benefits. And that item, of course, is important, and we appreciate that it's included in our budget, but it pushes us over to be requesting more than what we did last year. So our overall budget, with the request for a new position, we are $90,000 roughly more than 2024. But again, we think that this position that we are requesting is important to ensure the safety of our citizens in our right-of-way. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The right-of-way permits, we charge for those permits like we do other permits?
Yes, so we are currently charging for them. I am updating on our fee resolution, which the Public Works team will be coming forward with you later this year to revise what we're charging. We want to charge more, but more importantly, we want to start charging penalties for as we are going out there and correcting contractors. We want to make sure that we can enforce the permits. And so we're going to start charging more significant penalties. And if we see time and time again where contractors are not following proper safety protocol, we'll be able to, with this fee resolution, tell them that they must stop work for so many months, and then they will be able to continue work again. But we want to make sure that those safety concerns are properly penalized.
So you probably know where my next comment or question is going then. If we're charging those fees, then this new position potentially is covered by the increase of right-of-way permits that we're issuing, and there's an offset there, I guess, is what I'm looking at. Does that sound right?
Yeah, there's going to be some offset. I don't have it offhand. Raylyn and I haven't gotten into those increased fees as of yet, and I apologize, Raylyn. That's on me for not getting you those numbers quickly enough.
No, that's fine. The engineering department is fully funded either by fees or an allocation to the enterprise funds, because that's where they do a lot of their work through.
And I knew that, but I just wanted to hear it on the record again. Thank you both.
Councilor Doty.
Thank you. I just want to support Councilor Williams on this. If we're going to have penalties that are there, they need to be sufficient enough that they gather attention rather than they're actually weighing the odds. And we've heard that here at council before, where it's cheaper just to pay the penalty
Absolutely.
than it is to abide by what your contract says you're supposed to do. And so I would like to see us look at the penalties as well. And if the new position, certainly we shouldn't have them on there if we're not going to enforce our penalties either. So we should have the penalties in place as well as the application to get the permit, and then someone actively enforcing that and charging what is necessary to get their attention so they don't weigh the penalty versus the damage or the public safety issue that they're causing.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now, where we will have contractors tell our engineering technician, well, we're just going to go ahead and go out there and do it anyway. And so that's really what we're trying to avoid.
Councilor Dittenberg.
First of all, I would agree with Councilmember Doty about the penalties. Just don't impose those penalties until after we move the Rice House, because we will surely violate your right-of-way permit every inch of the way. But my question is are those right-of-way permits basically the utilities, updating lines, moving stuff? Who's accessing our right-of-ways?
Yeah, so it's anytime right-of-ways are accessed. So this could be utilities, if they're cutting in, they're trenching across our roads to get it into the right-of-way to get to utilities, or it could be the utilities along shoulders getting into their joint trench. But we also see it a lot from the development side as well, as they come through and they do their frontage improvements within our right-of-way. They're also doing these right-of-way permits. So we see a large amount of right-of-way permits that come in, both through development and through utilities. And our engineering technician is here right now, and she could certainly correct me if I'm missing any, but those tend to be the big items, but there's a whole flurry of reasons that people come into our right-of-way. For example, moving Rice House.
Very good. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Next, I will briefly discuss our mapping department. So our mapping department, again, they have many responsibilities, but what it really boils down to is they maintain our GIS system, which is our Geographic Information System, for the city. And through the maintenance of the system, they keep track of all of our assets. So this includes all of the infrastructure, not just of property information and roads, but also all information and data associated with sewer, storm, water, surface water, irrigation, street poles, street lights. They keep track of everything. And that in and of itself is a huge job and a huge undertaking. They keep a Caldwell web map available, which allows all staff members to be able to see what all of our assets are, and we're able to gather a large amount of information through our through our web map that the mapping department manages. Their strategic goal is to continue to improve the asset management system. So they use a software that is called Beehive, and Beehive allows for our public works team to really be able to properly manage all infrastructure assets within the city. And they can do this in real time. So they can take their tablets out into the field with them, find the manhole. If the manhole is in the incorrect location, they can correct the location. They can correct any invert elevations. They can add information regarding maintenance. So it really is a software that allows us to properly maintain our assets. As of right now, we haven't been able to put as much effort into Beehive as we would wish, which is why we are requesting in professional services some funds to help us improve this Beehive system so that we can help the Public Works Department better manage their assets. We are also working towards making our web map outward facing so that the entire public will be able to review our system and our data. We, of course, want to be very mindful as we start looking at an outward-facing map system, and we don't want to make all information public, and we want to work closely with our IT department to ensure that we're keeping Caldwell's data safe. So this is an ongoing process that we are working towards. Recent accomplishments, the mapping department, though their main job is working with our GIS system, they are constantly willing to help other departments put together various map exhibits that are clear and concise to be utilized. I know planning has brought some maps to you, council, that regard information of the developments that are coming in. So we really are trying to work with our other departments to provide clean exhibits that can be shareable to with any information requested. Our mapping budget is very simple this year. We are actually decreasing from last year's budget, about $16,000, and that was just because last year we had quite a few purchases of some technology purchases that we need to make, and so this year we're going to see a little bit of a decrease in that. And again, our overall budget, when you include personnel, you're seeing a decrease from last year's budget for mapping, and so with that, I will stand for any questions.
Councilor Williams.
This is probably ridiculous to even ask. Could you back up one slide? I know
Yes.
how much my own cell phone bill is, but why are the cell phone budgets going up 67%?
We are seeing, so for one, we were able to hire 2 new staff members this year. And so we're seeing an increase of 50%, because it's only a 4-person department. We're seeing a 50% increase to staff. So we were able to hire 2 new positions, so we're expecting to see that our bill will roughly double because there's 2 more lines that we're paying for. Also, we're just expecting the increase from the company as we're paying for our services.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Raylan.
So in regards to cell phone, I will say I've been working with Jose, our IT director, and we have been looking at other options to see what we can do to reduce the cost of cell phones across the city. And hopefully soon we'll bring a proposal to city council. We just don't have that done yet.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Mr. McDonald's turn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Round two. Just joking. I really appreciate staff, the time they've taken to put these budgets together and their reporting, I feel like is excellent. Will you go to number one? I don't have anything else to present tonight, except we have many dozens of capital projects, and I wanted to just run through a couple of the big ones so that council is aware of some of the big projects that you may see coming up in 2025. And I think I have 11 projects here that I am planning to highlight, and please, if you have any questions, I'm going to go through these quickly, but if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to jump in. So project number one is the Lake Lowell Pathway Extension, and I know that you have all heard about this, and this is the project that goes down through Seventh-day Adventist property, and then it will be going through an underpass under Karcher Road. We have successfully negotiated the right-of-way, and I believe the mayor is supposed to be signing that closing this week, which has taken years of negotiation. A lot of the design work has been worked into ITD's plans, and so when ITD comes in and does the work, they will be building the underpass, and the structure itself is being paid for by ITD. There's quite a bit of other work outside of the right-of-way that the city is on the hook for, but ITD will be building it because it all coincides. And recently, because of some significant savings that we are realizing on the utilities down on Karcher Road that we were going to be using ARPA funding for, we have a couple $1 million we're hoping in ARPA funding that's left over that we can apply to this project to offset those costs. And so this project, we hope, will be well on its way in 2025 when ITD gets started. The 10th Avenue ITS and overlay. ITS is Intelligent Transportation Systems, and so really it's talking about connecting traffic signals together so they can communicate. But what's happening here is this is a full resurfacing of 10th Avenue between the interstate and the railroad. This will be happening next year. This is a federal project. So the city's only paying a cost share. This will include raised medians through a lot of that, and some ADA access, ADA ramp reconstruction so that it meets all the current standards. This will certainly make that section of road, which is in very poor condition, much nicer. Pavement overlays, 10th Avenue and Homedale Road. We have two different overlays that Bruce and I have been working on. When I was appointed to this position last year, one of my biggest concerns was our transportation system. And we feel strongly that it is time to start doing overlays and starting to start rehabilitating some of the road sections that have been neglected. We have two sections here, 10th Avenue from the railroad tracks down, possibly all the way down to Logan is what we're looking at. And then the other one is Homedale Road between Florida and Midway. Some of you are probably familiar with that section that feels like you're driving on a washboard road there. The next project that we will be starting to look at that is a multi-year project is Linden and the Boulevard. And this will be very similar to what we did at USTIC. Next year, we're going to be doing some preliminary and some design work, and then the following year, we would be doing right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, and then year 3 is when we'd be hoping to do some construction. This intersection here is at capacity many times of the day, and it's in need of some work. We also have, this is the big project that was brought up earlier by Councilman Stoddard. Farmway Road is proposed to be rebuilt by Canyon Highway District 4. They've already started the section from Simplot all the way down to Linden, that they are doing this summer. The section from Linden down to Homedale needs utilities constructed in it before they rebuild it. We just found out probably within this last year that they were planning to rebuild it, and so it pushed us forward in some of our planning. We wanted to make sure that we planned ahead to get utilities constructed and put in the ground before they go in and rebuild that road. So we've been working with them. There's also a development, Chickasaw, that was approved that needs sewer for their development, and they also need water. They will be pulling some large water lines out from 10th Avenue to their site, and they were proposing to do a lift station, sewer lift station, that was going to cost them $900,000. That would then be turned over to the city, and what we wanted to do was, instead of them putting money into that, put the money into our sewer line so we can get the trunk line built. So there are a lot of pieces and moving parts here. There's participation back from the highway district, from the developer. We're also looking at reimbursement agreements for the sewer so the city can recoup some of the expenses for that sewer line. This is a major project that is proposed, if everything goes to plan, would be starting as early as this fall, when some of those utilities have to be bored under the irrigation facilities. And then into the winter, the utilities would be constructed, water and sewer. And then in the spring, the roadway would be reconstructed, and right on the heels of that and during that would be the roundabout at Ustick and Farmway. So it's a fairly large project that we weren't anticipating to do this quick, but because of the other elements that are coming together, it's kind of pushed us into this. If we chose not to participate, then Highway District 4 would rebuild the road, and we wouldn't be permitted to go cut into the road for 5 to 7 years without rebuilding the road again. And so we felt like pushing this forward made the most sense. Linden, we talked about that. The railroad quiet zone. We recently received proposals for consultants to do this preliminary design, but we are going to be we actually have decided to do this in-house. Bruce has been looking into it and feels that he can manage this instead of us paying a consultant $170,000 to put a concept together. The designs are relatively easy to do. The tricky part with this is working with the railroad and the Federal Railroad Administration. But we are confident at this time that we'll be able to put it together. Some of the costs in 2025, we budgeted $100,000, and that is for the railroad's time for plan review, which can be significant. And then probably in the subsequent year, we'd be proposing to make the improvements. We don't exactly know what that's going to cost at this point. You have probably all heard us talk about the Ustick interchange. This is a very large project that would allow highway travelers, freeway travelers on I-84 to be able to exit at Ustick Road. We have been negotiating with ITD on this and several other municipalities in the area, and we have a scope of work and a consultant that is just about ready to kick off the interchange justification report, which is a process that takes about 2 years with environmental and a lot of other things that are reviewed. And once that is approved by federal highways, then we could go into design and into construction. ITD has committed to participate in the cost of that study. The city of Nampa has committed to participate, and also Canyon Highway District 4 has committed. This interchange helps everybody in the region. The city, though, we are the prime mover on this project, and we have been the ones that have been pushing for this. This section here, this is just the completion of Ustick Road at the railroad tracks. We have finally received approval from the railroad. We have paid the fees that are necessary, and the railroad has started ordering materials for the railroad crossing at Ustick Road and the railroad. And then we also, as part of this, we have to coordinate very closely the rebuild of Indian Creek, the bridge that's going to be there. All of these have to be coordinated very closely together because you can't do one without doing all of it. And so engineering has this task, and that project appears to be moving forward and would likely happen in 2025. You all know about the 21st Avenue sewer bypass. This is the project that began the intent was to build this sewer line that was going to take the 21st Avenue lift station offline, which has been causing a lot of problems and has a very large sewer shed. This project stalled out. The contractor did not complete the project, and we are working with our legal team to make sure that we keep this thing moving. Right now, the ball is in engineering's court to look at some alternative designs and find a feasible way forward, but we will not ease up on this because we feel like this needs to happen, and we want to make sure that, that we are treated fairly by those parties that did not complete the project. We have a large sewer project on Lincoln Road. The purpose of this project is to be proactive and take offline 2 lift stations that currently have quite a bit of wastewater passing through them. At the Woodgate subdivision and also at Virginia Park, we have all the wastewater that is everything to the southeast is running up through these lift stations, and these lift stations were not originally designed for this kind of flow. Within the next couple of years, we estimate that we would be out of capacity. So what this project does is it builds our long-term lift station down on Lincoln Road. It builds a force main that runs from Lincoln temporarily over to the Franklin lift station, which is the one that's a little further to the west. But ultimately, we will have that force main go up over the hill, so we will have redundancy going up over the hill. It also includes a trunk line, gravity line that runs from the Woodgate lift station down to that lift station on Lincoln. And it also includes a trunk line that comes all the way from Middleton to the west to that lift station that will be able to accommodate all the growth that's happening out on the Middleton area, past Middleton, that is below off the hill, basically at that location. This is a multi-year project, but it's something that we feel strongly that we cannot neglect, and we have started the process now of going into preliminary design, and the design for the lift station is currently being reviewed by the Department of Environmental Quality. And the last one is not terribly complicated, but it is a water line in 10th Avenue down near Mallard Park up to Valley View Middle School. The purpose of this is to connect 2 different parts of water pressure zone number 4 so that we have better pressure. There's a lot of growth down in this area. The dot that you see there is the probable or optional location for a future water storage tank that would hold 3 million gallons. And that's not something that needs to be built immediately, but there is a development going in there that has a location that is exactly at the right elevation for that water tank that will serve Zone 2. And so we're talking to them to find out what options there are, maybe of just reserving some land there. So in the coming 2 to 5 years, we're able to build this water storage tank that the Zone 2 is going to need. The purpose of the storage tank is to allow fluctuation in the system so that during peak hours, you don't have all of your pumps ramp way up, and then in the middle of the night, all your pumps are down and they're going up and down. The tank basically is a buffer for that so that your pumps can run more consistently, and the tank is basically making up the difference up and down. That is a lot, and there are a lot more projects, and at this time, that concludes our Public Works presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. After I am done, then the Building Department does have a presentation briefly to just talk about the Building and Facilities Department, if that's the direction the city wants to go. Brett Clark was not feeling well, but Chris is here, and Chris Walworth is here, and she's perfectly able to do the presentation and answer any questions you have.
I was going to say, it says thank you, but no questions. I don't know if you get a question or
I
not,
do,
Councilor Williams.
I want to say thank you, but I do have questions.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, again, just great job by your entire team, thank you. If you could back up to the, and you don't really need to, but the Eustic interchange, and I'm a big fan and a big proponent of it, and we need to do whatever we can to get that done, but you stated we have commitments, and then you stated from several other parties. When you say commitments, Rob, do you mean we have something in writing, or do you mean we have people nodding their heads saying, oh, we would love to participate with you? What do you mean by commitments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman. The commitments that we have, are, at this point, they're verbal, but Nampa and Highway District 4 have told us to put an MOU together that solidifies these commitments. And the value of those commitments, I think Nampa was $150,000. I think the Highway District was $50,000, if I recall. So we are working on an MOU right now to solidify that. ITD has given us a verbal commitment, but that's come straight from the top, and so I'm confident they're going to participate. I'm not sure at this point to what extent, and we're still trying to work through some of those details.
And then to that same end, if you went back to the quiet zone, do we have an MOU from the county yet on their commitment to participate with us in the 12th Avenue Road, or where are we at on that? Because I'm getting conflicting information on whether or not they're participating with us in that or
Yep.
not.
That is a very good question. And this came up, I believe, last week. So we don't have an MOU from the county at this point. We are proposing, at this point, we're trying to just wrap our heads around what it's going to take to do these improvements. Once we have an idea of what the 12th Avenue improvement is going to cost, it's going to be easier to put a document together. But our intent now is to start communicating with the county and get them on board. I don't know why they wouldn't. This is a huge benefit to their facility, and I think it's going to be a huge benefit to this entire corridor.
I guess my fear is that since the powers that be have not had anything brought to them yet, they have not made any decision in this matter yet, and so we're kind of out on the hook here now. If they choose not to participate, and if we've already redirected some of the funds that we, a year ago, directed to this project, we might not even have enough to get it done as we've stated it would be. So I'm very interested in getting that buttoned down as quickly as possible.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Static?
Mr. Mayor, Rob, back to the Farmway project again.
Yep.
And you probably can't answer the question, but why tear up a perfectly good highway? Is it because of the Chickasaw project or the roundabouts, or why did they tear that up?
No, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Static, that's a very good question. The highway, it's not a city highway, it's Canyon Highway District 4's. They have done some extensive analysis on it, and there are sections that are okay, but there are a lot of sections where the oil is bleeding through the pavement, and there are structural issues that they have identified. For this purpose, they have decided that they've put it on their list, and they feel like it needs to be rebuilt. And, you know, I can think of roads that are worse than that one. And so it's a little bit difficult, you know, sometimes when I look at other roads in the city, I think, yeah, is this one the best, highest priority? And I think after I was driving it the other day and after I had met with them, I did, you know, observe the road, and it isn't in great condition. It does have issues. But anyway, the point is that they're going to rebuild it, whether we're ready to have them do that or not, and the only way to get ahead of them is to proceed on this project.
Okay, because like I said, I had quite a few questions on that this morning, meeting with some people. I'll just direct them to the Napa Highway District, and maybe they can answer some of the
Sure,
questions.
and they would have all the documentation on that.
Okay.
And I'm also happy to answer any questions I can if you want to direct anyone to me.
And it's Canyon Highway District, correct?
Highway District 4.
Highway District 4.
It's not Canyon anymore because
Oh, okay.
people that were trying to call the county were calling them, so it's Highway District 4.
And they're the ones located off at exit 25, correct? Out by
Correct.
Middleton?
Yep.
So, okay. Councilor Dittenber?
Rob, I got a question for you. I was at a meeting here several weeks ago with some people in this room, and they talked about the projects that the city has, and then there was like a heavy sigh. And so I take that in conjunction with the Montana and Ustick traffic light, where we had a contractor back out and we couldn't do it. Are there enough contractors and are there enough people around who are bidding on the work that we need done?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Dittenber, that's a great question. We have had, it's hit and miss, and it all depends on what project is out to bid by ITD, by the highway districts. If you go out to bid at the wrong time, you could be shooting yourself in the foot. If you go out to bid at the right time, you know, like what happened last year when we bid on that 602 parking lot, we got 6 bids, and so we felt very good about that. Montana and Ustick is a project that was supposed to happen last year. We received 1 bid when we bid it out. The bid was much higher than, it was twice what the engineer's estimate was, and then on top of that, they had a $300,000 error in their bid, and that was just enough uncertainty that we ended up throwing it out, even though we acknowledge that that intersection has a lot of accidents. Since then, our electricians, Bob's team, went out there and put some flashing stop signs up to help mitigate that until we could get it back out to bid. It has since gone back out to bid, and we have a bid back on it now. And so that project is supposed to start anytime. I'm not exactly sure the start date, but we've received the bid back, and they should be going. So it is going to happen, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. So is Chris coming forward then to?
Yeah.
Mayor, Council, thank you for this opportunity. I'm speaking on behalf of Brett Clark, building official for the City of Caldwell. Like I said, my name is Chris Walworth. I'm the permit manager for the city. I am here to propose a new buildings and facility director and safety manager for the city. Excuse me. We haven't had this position, which is needed. You know, several years ago, we didn't have a facilities department. Currently, we have a partial facilities department, which is under the Parks and Recs department. It's not a full facilities department. It's currently limited to the maintenance of the building systems, minor building maintenance, and custodial services. It also only incorporates about 12 of 45 city buildings, which is only a third of the buildings that need to be addressed. We've put together a couple of slides that will help you understand what's involved, who's involved, and everything that is needed for this position. So the programs under this director, facilities director, would be, there's several here. So it would be project management for design and construction of new and remodeled city facilities, such as this project for this building that we currently did. It would be contract management for elevator maintenance, fire and alarm system, sprinkler inspections, pest control, and HVAC systems and controls for all the buildings to upgrade. It also includes maintenance and repairs to city buildings, structures, and systems. It includes the custodial services, which are currently under Larry Sink. It would also include upgrades and programs for the energy management for lighting of all city buildings and structures. It also includes risk management. Risk management would include for insurance, to make sure that it is to be able to explain to people how to exit buildings for like I said, for risk management, for safety. It's also a facilities assessment. We haven't had a facilities assessment to any of our buildings in years. This needs to be done annually. Like I said, we have some older buildings and they need to be assessed, and we need to have a team to do that. Also, another important part is the ADA Title II transition plan, program plan, that has not been updated recently. It's been outdated. Oops, it's touchy. The mission for this director position would be to follow industry best practices to provide cost-efficient custodial services and maintenance services. Establish and maintain a 10-year capital and maintenance improvement plan. Establish a budget for unplanned maintenance, which with our buildings being older, is something that needs to be put in place. Provide maintenance services to approximately 45 buildings that are within the city, and that does not include the pump stations. Provide custodial services to approximately 14 buildings. Manage the design and construction of all capital building projects. I do have slides for all these to go forward to get into a little more detail. Lastly, establish an ADA team to manage and maintain our Title II transition plan. Why the need for a buildings and facilities director? This position has been long overdue, as the city does not have, they have a partial facilities department, but they don't have a facilities and building director. The city has long needed a department with a director to oversee not just the maintenance and equipment and custodial services, but to oversee all aspects of facilities, such as the mandatory ADA transition plans, construction management of city projects, and procedures to reduce energy consumption, efficiency, monitor building systems, and to restore neglected city buildings. A facilities director should be someone with a background in all aspects of the buildings, systems, safety, building codes, building inspections, project management, exiting requirements, federal ADA guides, and all life safety. When we talk about project management, it's from conception, from the very beginning of the build to the very end, to make sure everything is looked at with building codes, and someone who has that experience will know what to look for from day one. Facilities does not belong under the Parks and Rec Department, just as the building safety does not belong under Public Works. Building safety should fall under Facilities Department along with the Facilities Director. A director over building and facilities would oversee facilities as well as the Department of Building Safety. So there would, for the Facilities Director, he would have an umbrella. He would have the facilities, and the building department would fall under that umbrella. Two departments with the expertise in buildings, codes, systems, maintenance, and construction. The Director of Building and Facilities will budget and establish a plan for capital projects to start enhancing the beautification, repairing what has been neglected, reducing energy consumption, extending the life of our mechanical systems, which we all know are older, providing safe and clean buildings for our employees to work in and citizens that are entering our buildings, and restoring to regain the highest market value for our buildings, our city buildings. The director would oversee the safety emergency manager to assure that all safety protocols are being exercised throughout the city to reduce insurance, medical, and liability costs as part of the risk management for both employees and the citizens of Caldwell. The director will establish a budget and manage the city's Title II transition plan to assure that expectations are being addressed, updated, and facilities upgraded. This plan requires an established ADA team with the expertise of certified building inspectors and officials to manage the over 42 city buildings and facilities, which include approximately 87 areas to inspect, which includes parking lots, outbuildings, not just inside of the building itself. The director will oversee city construction projects. This requires expertise in all aspects of the construction. Once again, going from the conception of a new build or a remodel to the final building. So the ADA Title II requirements on this transition plan is to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, at state and local government level. All buildings must be accessible. Buildings and facilities need to be accessible, as do programs, services, and activities. Our current transition plan is not up to code. Like I said, we have been behind on our transition plan, so it needs to be upgraded. An ADA team is key to achieving this successful compliance. This is too large of a job for one person. Also, the transition plan and evaluation requires expertise and specialized skills to complete this task. By moving facilities out from under the Parks and Rec Department and placing building safety under the umbrella of the Building and Facilities Director, we would intertwine the experience and skills necessary for each team to build such a specialized team. Okay. Perfect example for the ADA. We took a couple of pictures we went to some of our existing buildings, and with just 2 buildings, we found multiple things that need to be addressed ADA with our Title II transition. This is our senior center. This is gonna work. So on the left-hand side, you can see that there's a clearly marked exit. But that exit is not, it's blocked. This needs to be clear for if someone in a wheelchair is going through, because you can see that there's an ice maker on the left that's partially blocking that door. There's a trash can in the way, and there's the table is partially blocking it. If there's a fire, someone in a wheelchair is not going to be able to get out of there clearly. The picture on the right is the exterior part of that exit door. Once they go out, it's not a compliant landing. It needs to be 5 feet. If someone goes out with a wheelchair on there, they're not gonna make it out because there's not that 5-foot landing. Also, there's no ramp for them to exit safely. There's a 6 to 7 foot drop. So this is something, like I said, that needs to be addressed for our Title II. We go right across the alleyway to our library, which we know a lot of people are visiting. We have the same issue. We have an exit door. It's not blocked, but when you go out, when you see the back, the right-hand picture on the outside, again, there's not a 5-foot landing. And there's another 6 to 7 inch drop with no ramp. And for us to try and accommodate this, to make this ADA compliant, it would cost a lot of money, because because this goes into an alleyway, we have to have this accessible to the public right-of-way, to a sidewalk. And being that it's going into an alley, that would be very expensive to do. The second picture of the library is at the front of the library. Once again, there's an exit sign there, so people are going to, if there's a fire or there's an emergency, they look for exit signs, and that's where they're going to head to. So this has an exit sign, but then the picture on the right, you can see, once again, there's not a 5-foot landing, and there's no ramp. So if someone goes out there in a wheelchair, they're going to get stuck right there in the dirt and inside of, right there on the grass. The only way to make this compliant would be to make a 5-foot landing and then extend your concrete all the way to an exit area. Being that this is a library with the occupancy and with the occupancy of this, there's already, this library has 4 exits listed. But with those, like I said, we also have an exit at the front, which is ADA compliant. We have an exit to the east, which is ADA compliant. For this occupancy load on this building, we only need 2 exits, and we already have 2 accessible exits. So the way to fix this and not cost the city a lot of money would be, we could remove these 2 exits. This one on the front and the one on the back, we remove the exit signs. They're still exits, but they're not emergency exits because they're not ADA accessible. So this would still be within code for us to do this. And this is something that a facilities director needs to have, that expertise of building codes, knowledge, and the ADA, and have all that access to know that we can do these changes, and it's not going, we don't have to do a lot of money to do work that's not necessary, because they're going to know the codes and they're going to know what's going to be needed. This next one would be for capital projects. Perfect example is right across the street at the City Hall Annex at 621 Cleveland. These are veneer bricks that have been on that building forever. A couple years ago, we had asked to have this repaired because only the bottom layer of veneer was coming off from the snow and the rain. It popped off some of those veneers, and now that veneer and that sheathing is now being exposed to rain and snow every year. What happens is it's now crawling up the wood sheathing, and it keeps popping off every year because it swells. So it's popping off those veneer bricks, and it just doesn't look right when people are going, this is a city building. This needs to be improved. Now this is just going to be more extensive and more expensive to fix, because like I said, it needs to be done because it's just going to keep going up that wall. This now goes up about 3 feet when it could have been addressed about 6 years ago with just the simple one. This next picture is the interior of that same building at 621 Cleveland. Our roof over there has been in disarray for many, many years. I know that roofs are expensive, and what's happening is that the RTU units, the units that are on top are HVAC units that are on top, they're not leaking, but what happens is they're older, so they freeze, they get, and then they melt, and then it decreases. Well, what happens is that water now starts going through all your joists on your roof because there are leaks in there. And this is a wood-based building, and so water's going to take the least path of resistance. So it goes down all those in the attic. It goes down through all those wood joists, and then it finds what path to find. Well, this is what you get all these. We get these leaks. We've had leaks where we have buckets of the Tupperware, and the water is just leaking down into it. We had a situation back probably 5 months ago in Mr. McDonald's office where we had the tiles coming down, we had water coming through it, we had to, it was a mess. We had insulation coming out. It was a big mess. We've asked for this to be looked at, and it just, we'll patch it. Well, over the years, with what we've put into trying to repair it, we could have put into a new roof. So these are just things that need to be addressed, and a facilities director would be able to handle this, because I know everybody's, they do a lot, they wear a lot of hats, but this is something that they would be involved in, and this is what their job would be, and they could address this before it gets to a level that's bad. These, like I said, these are issues because who knows if there's mold in there or what else is growing in there. Some of these things don't get addressed right away, or if they're over the weekend and things, it can just be unhealthy. This is another project that The picture on the left is on 7th, right there in front of the 621 building. These are, bricks that were put in. It's a public hazard liability. Like I said, these bricks go down they've settled 2 to 3 inches now. So someone with a wheelchair or can't go through there, or what if someone trips? It's a liability to the city. This becomes part of the risk management. The picture on the right is actually right down the way here going to the 7th Avenue Bridge. Once again, we could have used stamped concrete to get that same effect. But they put in those pavers, and this is what happens. They settle over time. And this, like I said, this would fall under that Title II ADA transition plan. These are just things that, like I said, someone who has the expertise of the building codes could give insight to the build from the beginning. This is another project for, we're doing a lot of building here in Caldwell. We're trying to beautify, we're trying to upgrade. We're not that little sleepy town anymore. We're getting big, we all know it. We're talking about beautification. Well, this is our landscaping in front of our building. It's weeds. Picture on the right, we have sprinklers all in there. That should all be landscaped. It used to be before. You can see that that yellow curb, it needs to be repainted. That driveway there is, it needs to be repaved. We don't have, the parking lot stalls, the striping is very minimal now. And like I said, this is what people are seeing for city projects. This is a city building. This is what people are seeing. And I just think we need to beautify, and that's something that that director can, maintain with all of the city buildings. We are a beautiful city and community. I think we need to address that and keep that going forward with all of our buildings. This last slide shows how the Buildings and Facilities Department would kind of fall under. So there would be that facility on the left-hand side. You see the Building and Facilities Director, and you see that there's actually 2 proposed positions: Facilities Director, and then a Safety Emergency Manager. Safety Emergency Manager is an important position. We're not going to give that, take that down, but to create this new department and make it run smoothly and have, the direction that we need, it's recommended that the building superintendent help with the building and facilities director. We talked extensively to Pat over at the Nampa, and he's been the facilities director over there for several years, and they're a bigger city, and he was very informative, he was very helpful. And he was also suggesting that this is not just a one-man job. It's something that needs to be done by a department, by group. And we need the help to get it going. To get this department going, we would need the director and a building superintendent. Maybe in a year, we can look at the emergency manager, because we feel that is needed. But to get this department up and running and to get things going, we would recommend the Building and Facilities Director and a superintendent to get this going. Mayor and Councilman, I want to help you all. I want to thank you all for allowing me to come up here, and I apologize for not being as clear as Ashley. That's a hard one to follow, but I do want to thank you, and I don't know if you guys were all forwarded this proposal for that position. I think I sent it to Raylene.
It'll be online, or it should be online already on the city website.
That'll explain a little more to this position. I know, like I said, it's new, it sounds new, but like I said, I know a lot of the other jurisdictions do have it, and it is something that will help the city. Like I said, we're talking about beautification and moving forward with the city. I think we need to lead by example with our buildings, and we just need to. So thank you all very much.
Yeah, thank you, and we realize you did kind of pinch hit at the last minute, so we appreciate that. Any question, Councilor Doty?
Yes, I have a few. So I totally support the broken windows theory, that these things, as they're small, we should correct right away. I'm not saying that a building facilities director isn't needed, but what I am saying is some of these things you pointed out should have already been corrected by someone, either a appointed official or director taking notice, taking it to the mayor, to the council, to get some of these things corrected, right? I'm not saying that everyone should know the ADA standards, but if we have a building falling apart in the wall, you said 6 years ago, if we haven't heard about it or seen it since 6 years ago, it certainly, I think, would have been addressed by this council to fix that, just the wall, and I'm just using that as an example. My issue is by putting a maintenance or a facilities director in there, I see Larry sitting back there. What are you going to do to get him some help? So I see that there's custodians, but who's going to do, just in the projects you've listed, if we, just by adding another supervisor, where are the people that are going to do the work?
So on, yes, it was listed, so the, like the maintenance contracts, sometimes if our in-house can't do it, we would manage contracts with outside businesses to be able to come in and do that work.
Okay, so we probably need some sort of cost analysis to see if we
Yes,
want
and
to
that would be
contract
the
all
part of
that
the
out or
budget.
hire more folks in-house, correct?
Correct, and that's what we'd need a budget for.
Sorry. And then your point's well taken on 621 Cleveland. I think we have 10 people in the basement there. And we have a workout facility here that's open and nothing in it currently. And so I think the important thing is to, clearly fitness is important, but our workers and the people employed by the city are probably better than equally important, for sure, their health and safety and well-being. So my suggestion will be the same, is that we move as many of those folks out of that building as possible. It does leak all the time. I think I was in Mr. McDonald's office when stuff was falling out of the ceiling, I think one time. So anyway, good job on pinch hitting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Doty.
Councilor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, tough to have to step in, and thank you for being here. Let me start here. Where would this position be paid out of?
So both of these positions, the building and facilities director and the safety emergency manager, are paid from the building department, which is paid by building fees. So they're in the general fund, but they would be supported by building fees. And then just like some of all the other positions, other than the two new custodians, are current positions in different departments. So like the building superintendent is currently our CEC superintendent. So that would stay where it is, funded by CEC. It would just, the supervisory of that position would change and go under this department. So we wouldn't necessarily accumulate all of these, like cemetery and CEC and facilities under one division. They would still be under their separate divisions because facilities has a different funding than building, and then CEC has fees that they collect, so we're not going to combine all of these together. They're still going to be separate divisions under one supervisor hierarchy.
It sounds like a lot of redundancy in here too, though. And my concern about looking at this is that there is a lot of overlap. In fact, as you went through the description of this position, I thought, my goodness, you need 5 people to do everything that you're proposing this director do. And honestly, some of the things you pointed out we need to fix, I'd almost rather fix those this year rather than pay a salary to do something that needs to get done now. Rather, if we spend the money to hire somebody to do what you just did very well, is point out all these deficiencies, why do I need to pay someone to do that? You just did it. So I'm really happy that you brought these to our attention. I hope that trash can's already been moved, because that's a really simple fix. Hey, that trash can shouldn't be in front of that door. If it's still there, we've got another problem because we're aware of it and nobody's done anything about it. But the safety emergency manager position is another concern to me. It's more redundancy. I know when we heard about this the first time, we were told at that time that the greatest majority of our workman comp claims come from fire and police, and we've approved over the last couple of years some significant positions in administration in those divisions for training and for management of these things. And so I don't want to hire another person on top of that to do what they should already be doing. I think we need to slow down a little bit here and get some of these things fixed and then move ahead, perhaps at a later time with these positions. But I just have some concerns about the way this overlaps and probably is creating a position where other positions should already be filling those gaps, and the job is much too big for one person. It sounds like to me. I'd hate to be that person. And frankly, the amount of oversight and authority this position has, it really ought to be an appointed position, not just a director.
Counselor Dendenberg? Oh, you took,
I may have changed my mind, but I think, so I think I know this, I could be wrong, but the city receives federal funds from different sources, maybe highway funds, I think CDBG, and we should have an accessibility improvement plan that should have been approved almost the day we accepted CDBG funding. So do we have an existing accessibility plan that it needs to be updated, or where?
Mayor, Council Denmeyer, you are correct. We do have a plan, but it does need to be updated. That's the thing. It hasn't been updated for a while, so that's one thing that, like I said, that the facilities director, it would fall under their responsibility to make sure that is done annually.
Counselor Doty?
Just one follow-up, so maybe we can get it out there so that everyone knows, because I'm not sure I know. So clearly a flower bed that isn't planted at one of our employees or someone may not notice, but certainly an ADA or a side of a building falling off. Is the reporting process to get that to our building superintendent, which is our current CEC super, or who takes the lead on it currently without this position? If someone says the side of our building's falling off and that needs repaired, what is the process to get that up to the mayor in front of council, clearly if it's not in the budget, to get some money approved to get the side of the building fixed?
And so I don't have that. I don't know if the mayor does.
I'm looking
So,
everywhere.
yeah, so
Anyone that has the answer
it
would
wouldn't
great.
be the CEC superintendent, because it's not part of that, so that's the 621. And I know Raylene was going to jump into, so I don't know if it'd fall to who's in that building, or?
So, yeah, so sometimes, for example, especially for City Hall and for the City Hall Annex, there's a budget set aside within general fund for repair and maintenance of that. And so it would be just notification to finance to make sure that there's budget set aside. You know, there's not a lot of, especially for City Hall, trying to figure out how much to set aside was one, talking about who we want, what we need for, repair and maintenance. And it's a lot of conversations with multiple departments, multiple people. It's not just one person that's in charge of it. So for 621, I would have said it previously, before it was City Hall Annex, it would have been the Public Works Director, because that was kind of the ownership there. But now, there were so many departments there that it was just kind of difficult. Whether that conversation was happening, I don't know. Since I started, there was not a conversation about it. Those just kind of happened, so.
Just to follow up, Mr. Mayor. And maybe we need to establish that now, whether the building and facilities director is approved or not. We need some sort of process for this to be approved or sent up through the chain instead of multiple people. Certainly it needs to end up at finance, but if you don't know, Raylene, that these things need repaired, I don't even know how you're budgeting for it other than guessing what we used the year before and certainly using some analytics to do that. But we need a process. So if no one in this room was aware that that wall needed to be repaired, then how do we know to budget any money to have it repaired? And maybe someone does in the room know it needs to be, but we must not have a system and progress where we're logging it, saying this is the top priority for repair, this is the next priority, this is the next priority, as these things are coming in. If they're going to the mayor or a council person or a appointed official, they're not being gathered, it seems like, in one spot, because that building should have certainly been repaired before today. And if the ADA is an issue out in front of the library, I think those could have easily been handled before today as well. So do you have any, Mr. Mayor, any guidance on what how
I
we're
would
gonna get
say,
our
I
arms
think
around?
it's something that we can definitely work on a process, for sure, like a documented process, but I know for budget purposes, I mean, it's a lot of conversations for me to try to estimate an amount, and that's what I did in this year's budget. For City Hall, this new City Hall, it was about $75,000. Previous City Hall was about 30, so kind of doubled it.
Yeah, and I think on those two, I mean, it comes to priorities as well, like we were talking a lot earlier. The 621, the faux bricks, whatever, those have been falling off for 10 years plus. So hasn't never been seen as a high priority. It's more just cosmetic in that regards. That the ADA obviously is a much higher priority on that. So knowing about those are things that we need to look at and address. And, whether that falls to the building official, to the, maintenance supervisor, in those regards. So those are things that, that now are brought to our attention. We'll address through one of those two channels. I imagine be one of those two. But again, the other is, again, taking those high priorities, which would be the ADA accessibility. Those are just lawsuits waiting to happen and usually very expensive. And then like I said, the stuff that's more cosmetic would be obviously quite a bit further down the line.
Sure, and just to follow up on the cosmetic one, though, it's starting to work its way up the wall, right, where it's becoming more expensive. So, had we fixed it early on, we wouldn't be in the predicament we're in, and it sounds like we're subcontracting these out or contracting these out to be repaired anyway, so maybe simultaneously some of these things can be done because maybe someone who does the ADA ramp doesn't fix the wall. But how much did you budget for the city entirely for the next year? I get it, 75 for City Hall. What?
So there's only two buildings that I end up budgeting for, in general fund, and then I will say police, and fire budget in their departments for their buildings. But for general fund in City Hall division, there's $75,000 for the Nancola Center, and then $30,000 for the City Hall Annex, in fiscal year '25. That I budgeted for.
So just one final comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Then maybe we can figure out where in this budget coming up to get those funds. I'd like to see some estimates on getting the wall fixed there. Clearly a flower bed can wait a minute. We can figure out where to get that from, but certainly those ADA ramps and the wall you showed, I'd hate to see what other pictures would around town, but at least now that we know that those need repair, we should certainly get some estimates on those and see what we need to do for those in the budget.
Yeah, and like I said, if I can just input, sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
So that's why, like I said, it's, the director position, it needs to be someone who is familiar with building codes so that we know going forward how to repair it, how to make those repairs. And as far as for that 621 for the exterior, that was brought to supervisor's attention about 6 years ago, and it just wasn't addressed then. And so now that's why it's gotten so much worse now.
And
Thank
you
you.
certainly have our attention now, so at least it got brought to our attention finally, so thank you.
Councilor Allgood?
Yeah, just two things. Following up on Councilor Doty's comment, not only do we need issues identified and Ray Lynn notified that we need to have money to fix these, but then you also have to have somebody that goes along and actually hires that person to do the repair and assures it gets done. And a lot of times when you have different people occupying a building, well, I thought you were doing it, I thought you were doing it kind of thing. I believe Mr. Sink may have some input on how this stuff gets done as well, if you want him to comment.
So, I mean, if you'd like to have him come forward, or we can just address it later, so.
Tell you how it's been working. So the way it's been since I've been running this facility.
Do you want to come to the microphone and just really quick, give a really fast overview of it?
Thanks y'all again for giving me a chance.
So the way it's been working here lately is, because it's a new department, the way things have been working, Brad or any of Ray Lynn or somebody, they'll all call me, Larry, this building's got a crack in it, or can you see about getting this roof patched? It's leaking, like she just mentioned. So we do, I do follow up on those kind of things and get those kind of things fixed. I get the contractors, I'm pretty familiar with most of your contractors that you use around the city. Art Solis or somebody like that, I get a hold of those kind of different people that fix sidewalks and cracks. So some of this stuff don't get, unless it don't get brought to my attention, I don't know about it. Patty over at Seniors, she'll say, Larry, the vents are dirty or they need to be cleaned, can you help us with that? And so I go out of my way to, get these kind of things coordinated. So whether you hire a director in the future or not, that's fine. But for now, air conditioning, all that stuff, the control system that she's talking about for the facilities, for the buildings, for energy savings, I've already got that all in place. I've been trying to present that. They're working on it now, actually for this building, for a control system that I asked for last year, which I appreciated. She did put the money in the budget, but I had to go a different avenue, but we're getting there. And then the PD, the same way, I'm fully aware the PD's got, the outside of the building needs to be painted. I'm aware of so many things, I just didn't know how much of this stuff you want to know about in the future, and I can get some cost numbers together later on, regardless if you hire a director or you don't. The ADHD thing, she's correct, there's things that I'm not familiar with on those kind of things. I am familiar somewhat with American Disability Acts. There is some money out there that they will pay for these sidewalks and different things to get fixed without us having to pay for it. But you just got to reach out to them and get a hold of these kind of people. But anyways, that's where it is now. People just contact me as well. It's been working. Larry, can you fix this? Can you get over here and check that? And so that's what I've been doing. So in the last 2 years. And I could probably use the help better than I could use a director, I'll be honest with you. I could use another maintenance guy and a painter or whatever, and, we can get a lot more stuff done. But that's just totally up to you guys, But thank you for.
Councilor Williams?
Okay, so it sounds to me, thank you, Larry, it sounds to me like Larry's already doing this. What we really need is worker bees, or maybe a worker bee, to get some of this done. So we like to hire, we seem to like to hire new positions. We like to hire managers. We like to hire directors. And I'm much more interested in seeing the efficiency in the work that we already have. And what Larry just told me is kind of news to me. It sounds like every city building in the city, whether it's the library or the senior center, they're already contacting him. It seems to me we just need to organize this a little better and maybe make sure he's got the support he needs to keep getting these things done.
Councilor Register?
Yeah, I was actually going to kind of say the same thing. It seems to me that, I'm sort of surprised there's not a process, so that 6 years ago when that was reported that somebody didn't follow up on it and, there was a way to get it done. But we obviously have pictures of some of the things that are causing problems, so somebody was able to go out and see these things. But I'm wondering if we need another top, management, or if we just need a process. And then, like Councilor Williams said, having some help for Larry, who's already doing the job. It sounds like it's just, to me, it just sounds like some disorganization within that department, and probably should have been handled and organized a little bit better, but I don't really understand the city's organizational chart, so I can't seem to get a copy of it that it makes sense. So I think we need to invest in a process over another manager.
Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add, or?
Yeah, I apologize, Mr. Mayor, for standing up. I felt compelled. I just want to correct the record that that wall has been repaired before, and it continues to deteriorate. So I just wanted to make sure there was a point where Mr. Orton hired someone to come out and try to fix it, but it continues to fall apart.
Thank you for that information. Makes it a little better.
Okay, I don't see any more green lights, so we appreciate that presentation very much. That is the last for this evening, so we appreciate everyone's attendance. I'm not sure when the next one of these is. July 15th, so give us a little break. I appreciate that. So, okay, thank you so much to everybody that came and for the questions that were asked and the answers that were given. And that concludes our workshop for this evening.
Can I add one thing before we
Yes.
start? So at this point, the civil rights or the ADA coordinator position has basically fallen between two departments. And one is the building official, because he has done the facilities transition plan for the last few years. And the last one that was done was 2021, just so you know. And usually I kind of keep on top of that because that falls under the city clerk as the ADA coordinator with various civil tort claims and whatnot. So about every 3 to 4 years, we work together with the building official to update that report.
Yeah, and we certainly appreciate everyone trying. I think that's some of the issue, Debbie, is that we need one person that's keeping up with all of it versus a person here and a person here and a person over here, so we can prioritize what needs to be done and then give Ray Lynn some projects so that we can get it in the budget and get some of these things accomplished versus just it coming from multiple sources or avenues. But we certainly appreciate everyone that's trying to keep track of it.
Yes, and of course, that is available online. The transition plan is always available online with all the other AD documents.